great. Thank you. Thanks very much. What should I do? You want mine? And then I give you the mine.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Myself, Nikut Nyakwana. Welcome, first of all, welcome all of you in Women Economic Forum 2016. Our today's topic is how to revive the brain to break addiction to alcohol, tobacco, cigarette and any other. Actually, we can say there are four speakers, Miss Mary White and Issa Nagle, Pat Duckworth and Liz Mary Mays. So these all women will be sharing her thoughts about our topics. Miss Mary White is our lead speaker. So first of all, let's welcome Miss Mary White. Continue.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Mary White from Cornelius Counselling and Therapy in the UK. Can I have the next one, please? Thank you. I just want to tell you that I have a particular personal feeling about addiction, because I've had personal experiences myself. My partner, 27 years ago, died of cirrhosis of the liver from alcohol, and it's been a sort of passion of mine ever since, because I felt so helpless at the time to be able to help others. And so I'm very pleased that I've been able to help quite a few people now. I have my own practice in the UK, and I'm a counsellor and therapist. Next, so a bit of background about myself. So I have an independent practice in Kent, where I see clients. I do treat a number of different issues, being a hypnotherapist, but my main focus is alcohol and drugs. I'm a member of the Hypnotherapy and Counselling Societies in the UK. I also volunteer at an alcoholic centre in Kent. I'm also a lecturer. That's where I sort of come from previously. I've been doing the counselling and hypnotherapy now for about 5 years. So I still teach at the University of Greenwich. And I'm looking at addiction with the spirituality aspects as well as part of a PhD. And so I'm going to talk to you today about the psychology of what's happening in people's minds. Why do they develop the habit or addiction? And how do we overcome it with hypnotherapy? So if I could have the slide, thank you. I think first of all we have to think about what is addiction. It's a very difficult aspect actually, because many people might think that it's something that is physical. Well, yes, it is physical, but we also have to look at the mind and the thought processes that initiate that addiction, habit, the decision to actually go that route. Unfortunately, in England at the moment, drugs and alcohol seem to go hand in hand. From the clients that I've seen, it starts with the alcohol and then the drugs follow. And instances of people going clubbing, the youth binge drinking, drugs just seem to be an automatic addition to the alcohol intake. I always say it's like an anesthetic. Taking drugs and drinking too much is like anesthetizing the brain for any other issues that people can't deal with. So it's taking them away from the real world reality of the problems that they have. Side effects, of course, can be quite bad. Cirrhosis of the liver, it killed my partner because it is like a slow death. And so that is why it's such an important issue that we need to address. Addiction can be like an allergy. An allergy is continuing to intake something that is actually going to kill you in the end. And alcohol and drugs are no exception. Although we might look at having allergies as a softer subject, we might be allergic to peanuts, for example. But just think about the allergic reaction that people have. So if I could conclude. I'm looking at it today from the psychological point of view. I just want to go through the process of the way people think, the way life starts out, the feelings that a person has, and the resulting behaviour. So, starting with external stimuli, the two key ones really are the learning and experience. As a child, as a baby coming into the world, we learn from our parents. And therefore, whatever we learn in our homes is really the only reality that we have. As we get older, we learn from experience. Now, the experience may be that maybe a person in the family is an addict. So we learn that maybe that's normal. So I'm just looking at it from that point of view so that there's an understanding that it's not necessarily a physical problem. It can be a mental problem, a feeling, a learning. So we learn from the children and develop beliefs and attitudes. And we know that we know nothing else until we go out into the world and we can maybe change those beliefs and attitudes, but it's very difficult. And the beliefs and attitudes that we have form our behaviour. So there will be issues that will also impact on that. Societal norms in which we're brought up, whether it's our own country or different countries, because we've got a huge diversity throughout the world now. Mimicry, I've put in there because it's about copying. So if we have been brought up in an environment where addiction, alcohol consumption, drug consumption is normal, we're likely to want to copy that and go with it. It's what we know. And also personality, different types of personalities will react to the environment in a different way. So we have to take all these things into consideration. So you probably couldn't hear me if I didn't have it far enough towards one up. So could we move to the next one? Thank you. I just want to throw into the pot here Sigmund Freud. I'm a great proponent of Sigmund Freud, but even more so Carl Jung. So I've got a couple of things here about them because I think that they knew what they were talking about. So the id, the ego, and the superego were three areas where Freud felt that the conscious was split. And so there can be an anxiety and tension within ourselves. And he broke it down in this way, that we are born with the id, which is a basic instinct. As we grow older, we gain experiences, and there can be a conflict between the basic feelings within us and also our experiences and our learning. So the superego has the job of controlling the conflict between the two. So I've put that in there to show that our conscious, our subconscious, it's a very complex area, and it's nothing that we can really simplify. But as you'll see with hypnotherapy, it can be extremely effective in helping to change thoughts and then ultimately change behaviour. So the experiences, as I've said, can develop addiction. It's not only going to be what we experience as children, it can be what we experience when we're older. For example, my partner only started drinking when he went to university. The problem was he couldn't stop. And when there were emotional problems in his life that he found very difficult to deal with, then the drugs came in and he used it as an anesthetic to deal with the problems. But unfortunately, he didn't realise what he was doing until it was too late, until the drugs and the alcohol had affected his liver and there was nothing to be done. So it was a very, very sad, unfortunate occurrence. In fact, I was totally devastated, so I can't say how, how much it affected me. It took me a very long time to get through it. And I do counsel people who are also involved with addicts, because I have the experience of 14 years of living with the addiction. And as I said, it's my passion to try and help people overcome. So thank you. All right, so to move on with the psychological aspects, if we're in a negative state, then there are these issues that will be paramount perhaps in our psyche. So I'm just putting these into the pot as well. People will have self-doubt. They will feel that they're stressed and they can't cope. Maybe feeling that they're not good enough, dependent upon the environment in which they've been brought up and the way they've been treated. More often than not, anxiety and fear. So the thought patterns are those that will go towards our behaviour. Next one, thank you. So our self-image, or the feelings, the affect is the feelings that we have, can be this type of feeling. Now, most of these I've put up here come from my clients and the things that they've said to me. For example, I feel worthless, depressed, there's self-loathing, they hate themselves because they are continuing something that they realise they shouldn't be doing, but they don't know how to stop it because they're addicted to it. Life isn't going anywhere. I did have a gentleman come to see me who had managed to stop drinking 1 bottle of whiskey a day. He managed to do that himself, but he came to me because of the aftermath, as I call it, the problems that he experienced as a result of giving up, because the alcohol was a crutch for him that helped him get through his days. So my job as a hypnotherapist has been to help him get that self-confidence back, to get rid of that fear. It's so bad that he fears going out of his house. And he hasn't been out of his house for quite a few months now, and he had the courage to phone me and ask me if I could help. So I do go and visit clients. They don't only come and see me at my therapy room, but I do house calls, because obviously there is a need for some people who are so fearful and stressed. So I try and help where I can. So these are the issues that we're really trying to resolve, and we need to know what those issues are so that we can deal with them with the counselling and the hypnotherapy. So, thank you. So the behaviour then, if we link it all together, the behaviour for those issues becomes either drinking too much alcohol, smoking too much as well. I've helped young men give up cannabis, who have found that they can't continue their lives. The problem is that a lot of young people start drugs when they're 14, peer pressure. And of course it's very difficult to give up. And what can they do if it's spoiling their lives and they really don't know how to deal with it? So the emotional pain then, cocaine of course is a heavier drug, and I'm very pleased that I've been able to help people stop any of these drugs and the alcohol, because the emotional pain, we have to remember, is something that can be transferred into illness. If we don't deal with our emotional difficulties, then that can transfer to our bodies and we become ill. So I always think about Bruce Lipton, who was a medical doctor who did some research into cell biology, and he discovered that every cell in our body has energy, that we are not just matter, we are soul, spirit, we are energy. So if our energy is negative, our thoughts are negative, then they could eventually long-term transfer into illness. So it's very important that we only hold positive thoughts. Thank you. So is there a solution? As we realise, the main problem is in our thought processes, and we have to change those. We have to change those to change our feelings and change the behaviour. So there's Carl Jung at the bottom there. Carl Jung said that there has to be a deep spiritual experience in order to change these particular behaviours of addiction. Now, I do believe that. Also, Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill W. had a spiritual experience which led him to start the whole Alcoholics Anonymous movement. And I believe that the hypnotherapy can help towards that. I'll leave that for you to think about your own conclusions. Could I have the next one? Thank you. Just going a little bit back in history to realise that it's not a modern problem. We've got Bill W. at the bottom, who started this in about the 1930s, helping people to give up alcohol. But St. Augustine also had a problem, 426 AD. Even in the Roman period, there was a huge amount of indulgence, shall we call it. And even Noah, he had a problem with the wine. So it's just to lighten it a little bit, that we're not alone. It's been going on for a very, very long time. So thinking about the spiritual side of things, I thought it might be interesting just to put a slide in here about the chakras, particularly because we're in India. But I do have a belief. I do believe that we need to be very cognizant of our energy centers and the way they affect us. Now, the sacral chakra, which is the second chakra, is about partnerships, and it also includes addiction. So I put up here the negatives and the positives of the sacral chakra, looking at, for example, the martyr archetype as an example, where people are feeling that they're unloved. That is one of the issues for addicts that want to anesthetize themselves. They don't feel they're worth it. Maybe something in their childhood was an issue where they didn't feel loved. I do know of one person who became an alcoholic, and delving into the past, the parents, he went to private school, and when the holidays came up, he was palmed off onto an auntie. They weren't really interested in him, and he felt unloved. They were more interested in partying, really. And so it's had that effect. And it snowballs as well, because he ended up marrying an alcoholic, and very, very difficult for him to overcome the issues. And it's also about looking within and having self-love. But many, many people these days don't even think about it. They don't think of the spiritual aspects. So I've put a list of the negatives and the positives. So we're trying to change the negatives into positive thought. Manipulation of others, I think, is a key issue that I've found. People that want to control others. Jealousies, maybe codependent relationships, unable to face the world alone. Need for approval, maybe you can see some sort of reality here. And then moving over to the positive, I like to say stepping into the light of self. It's about going on that journey to find yourself and encouraging that person to do that, to find their own reality and believe and love themselves. So it's the joy of being who you are. Am I all right? I know I mustn't go over time. Right, so there again, anger and fear. Anything negative can cause illness eventually, and we have to think about people's illnesses, whatever they are. What is it emotionally and mentally that has helped to bring that about? All right, so I better press on, I think. Okay, so there's hypnotherapy then. How does the hypnotherapy help? I call hypnotherapy a fast track. And you'll be able to talk about that too. I call it a fast track. We can counsel and counsel and counsel, but hypnotherapy goes right to the root and is able to change people's lives very quickly. And I believe that acceptance of wanting to change what you do is a spiritual awakening. And hypnotherapy, I also think, can be a channel or a key to opening that awareness. Because for somebody to come and see me, they have to have had some deep feeling about the need to change. Otherwise, they wouldn't phone me up and make an appointment that they feel that the change has to happen for them. So it's the desire to change. With hypnotherapy, you can't change anything. You don't take any notice of the stage hypnotherapists. This is clinical hypnotherapy, there to help people change, to make their lives better. So they have to have a desire to change. They must want it to happen, otherwise it doesn't matter what we say as hypnotherapists, it won't happen. The spiritual intervention, because you're actually going on a journey and talking to your inner self. I call it the meditative state rather than the hypnotic state, because I think it's very much like meditation for the person who experiences it. Thank you. So hypnotherapy is a key. Be aware that our subconscious is our fight or flight mechanism. It does protect us. So if we have habits, it will continue those habits until we tell the subconscious, actually, you don't have to do that anymore. It's fine. This person wants to continue their life without doing it. The conscious will is not strong enough. We need to tell the subconscious this change must happen. And as I said it's a meditative, spiritual state rather than the hypnotic state. I think hypnosis tends to frighten many people. But my experience is the people that come to have the hypnotherapy with me find it a very wonderful experience, which is heartening. Right, so I've just got a little model here that sort of brings it all together. Nearly finished, yes. The mind, the affect and the behaviour, which is the other side that I was talking about. You've got an imbalance between the cognitive thought and the feelings. So we need to change the cognitive thought to bring balance to the behaviour. And of course our spirit and soul are part of what aids the change. All right? That's within us. And so we need to get that fluidity and balance and change the negative behaviour into positive. So I think the last slide. Yes, just to show you here the positives, the positive feelings and the positive statements, the affirmations that can result from the hypnotherapy session. The shadow of the self, in that hypnotic state, in that meditative state, connecting with the inner being. Coming out of it and feeling good, and coming out of it and saying, I no longer will smoke, I no longer will drink alcohol, I'm drug free. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your initiation. Now I would like to invite Ms. Pat Blackwood, please.
So good afternoon, my name is Pat Duckworth and I'm a cognitive hypnotherapist. So there's a lot of commonality in what Mary does and what I do. As a cognitive hypnotherapist, I use neuro-linguistic programming, I use positive psychology as well as clinical hypnosis. This might sound like a bad business model, but I do not take on everyone who approaches me for help with addiction. I get people ring me up who want help with alcoholism, smoking, shopping too much, eating the wrong things, and also with gambling. But you can get addicted to anything. We know a lot of people now addicted to social media. People are addicted to pornography. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. Just like with phobias, you can be phobic to anything. I've had people come to me with a phobia for polka dots. How's that going to hurt you? It doesn't matter, everybody else's phobia is funny except yours. And with addiction, you can be addicted to absolutely anything. So if somebody rings me up, I like to have a long conversation with them. Just as Mary does, I always offer a free half an hour because I want to know whether I can help that person. And if somebody rings me up and I say, so what brings you now to hypnotherapy? And they say, oh, my mum said she'd pay for it. I am not taking that client because I want to know why they want to do it. Or somebody suggested hypnotherapy, I think it's probably rubbish, but I thought I'd give it a go. I do not want that client. I want the one who says, I'm having physical problems. You know, I smoke and I'm coughing and I'm really worried that I'm going to develop cancer. Or I'm drinking and every day I wake up and I feel terrible and I know what this could do because I've seen it happen in my family. Or I'm eating too much, my knees are aching, I know this is doing me no good. These are the clients that I want to work with. And sometimes, again, this might not sound like a very caring therapist, but I'm really listening for the messages they're giving out. Somebody rings me up and says, I want to give up smoking. Do you do a discount for people who are on low wages? Excuse me, when you go to buy your cigarettes, you say, can I have them cheaper because, I'm on low wages. I want to help people, and if people are ill, I will help them for free. But I really want to understand their motivation, their values are really important to me. So what is addiction? I think it's so complicated. It's a bit like saying with people who are overweight, eat less and exercise more. If it was that simple, they would all be doing it. But we are making mental connections. There is wiring going on in the head. And I'm really pleased that neuroscience is catching up with it about the bundles of neural pathways that we're building up in the head that reinforce the addiction. And I think one of the areas that's really interesting, well, there are so many that are so interesting. I wish I was younger and, I'd have more time. But it's the thing around identity as well, that if somebody identifies as an addict, if they come to you and say, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a smoker, they've taken on the identity, and that's a very high level of brain function. It's only just below spirituality. Who you think you are is so important to whether you get over it. I managed to, I might say even manipulate my son to stop smoking because I said to him, you're not really a smoker. This is just a habit you've got into. Because your friends smoke or you're going outside and, in the break they're having a smoke. I said, but you're not really a smoker. And I just kept saying that to him so he wouldn't identify that that was who he was. Because if somebody identifies with it, they go into what we call in neuro-linguistic programming, an external locus of control. If your identity is I'm an addict, I can't help it, I'm an addict. It's put it outside of your control. If you say I'm somebody who does a certain behaviour, you're taking on responsibility, and now it's become an internal locus of control, and I can start to do something about it. It's become a behaviour that I'm now in control of. So I'm listening again for that language of, do I think I'm an alcoholic? Do I think I'm a smoker? Do I think everybody in my family is fat? That's just who we are. We're big boned, we've got slow metabolism. That's external locus. Take the locus inside and do something about it. With my husband, he had smoked since I met him. I came from a family where my father smoked and had given up smoking 8 times, but he'd never really given it up. Because every time he gave it up, he took on a new eating habit. He gave up smoking, he ate peanuts. He gave up smoking, he chewed gum. He gave up smoking, he ate sweets. So he really hadn't given up the addiction, he'd just given up that particular one. So with my husband, I knew not to try any of these things. And when he said to me, do you know what, I'm really fed up with smoking. I said, do you want any help? He said, don't do any of the funny voice stuff, I don't want to be hypnotised. So I said, I've got a tip for you here. I know what you're doing, because when people come to hypnotherapists, they think we're going to hypnotise them. Sounds obvious, doesn't it? But actually they're already in a trance. They're doing their problem, they know it's not logical, they can't help themselves. If you start to wake them up from the trance, there's something that they can do. So I said to my husband, every night you come in, you sit down on the sofa, you put your cigarettes in the same place, your lighter, your ashtray, you notice the first cigarette, and then all of the others you don't notice. So I said, what I want you to do is to put all of that stuff out into the kitchen, and every time you want a cigarette, you have to go and get it, bring it back. When you finish the cigarette, you take it all back again. I know he's lazy. I knew I'd got him beaten. Because after the first couple of times he did it, he said, you know what, I'm not going back out and getting another one. And within a couple of days he'd stopped. He'd been smoking for 40 years. But with every client, you're trying to find the thing that will help them. And I think that element of spirituality, you have to be really careful in the UK when you talk about spirituality, because everybody thinks you're talking religion. You know, so what religion are you? And what we're really trying to say is what is bigger than you are? What is that thing that you would acknowledge that's bigger than you are? And when I'm doing an intake, I say to people, if you had a purpose in life, a reason to be here on this earth, what would it be? And for some people, there is a huge silence because they haven't acknowledged the thing that's bigger than them. So it was lovely hearing Harbin talking about this spirituality as something much bigger than religion, about the thing that's bigger than we are. And I think, you know, if you're coming out of addiction, if you want help, it's about acknowledging this isn't all about you. This is something way bigger than you are. So this is a very short introduction to what I do. I hope I've helped with some of what Mary said as well. But I think taking an internal locus of control, understand that this is something that you need to do, is the very essence of the sort of work that I do with people. It's about waking up and understanding the trance that you've been doing and then getting into something better. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Ms. Mary. Please, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Darlis and I'm a recovering addict. So I'm going to come from a different angle than today. My profession is I'm an interventionist, and so unlike these ladies, people don't phone me up and say, come on over. Their families call me, they have a loved one. Families, friends, employers will call me and say, we have a loved one, they're in trouble, and they need your help. So when I arrive at the door, no one's really happy to see me usually. Not until sometimes years later, sometimes months later, when they're in recovery. So what I do is I have the family write love letters, and when I arrive at an intervention to aid this person, we read love letters. I'm trying to reach their heart, I'm trying to reach their spirit, and I always say that there's no denying a room full of love. And they feel that, and they feel love and respect and dignity and grace. And they haven't been feeling that. You saw some of the feelings that addicts have on the slide. They feel degraded, shamed. Their behavior, acting out their behavior and their addiction doesn't really warrant a lot of love and warmth from their family and friends. And so they're at a very low point. So I have a window of opportunity to reach that. The reason I'm in this profession is because I'm a recovering addict, 27 years clean last March. And I have a passion for helping other people achieve that. And what I say, that, you know, if there wasn't a spot available for that to reach that patient's heart, then I wouldn't have a chance to reach them. But I'm there to reach them through love, and it's been working very well. There's been a lot of studies recently that said that addicts really reach that point of addiction through lack of connection. And that's so true. And for me, getting me into it, my addiction was at age 14. I had a very traumatic incident happen. I didn't share it with anybody. I was filled with guilt and fear and trauma. And that's when I started taking anything that I could get inside of me to push that feeling down. And it was through a spiritual awakening. Source said, hey girl, we got some work to do here. What are you doing? And I really want to just talk a little bit about that. The life that I had as an addict for 18 years and the life that I live today are two different lifetimes. Very, very different. I didn't feel good about myself. I had no self-worth. I certainly wouldn't be speaking to you today from India if I was still in my addiction. My life has become wonderful. I've helped people around the world. I've traveled the world. I own my own business for 7 years. I've worked in major treatment centers throughout the US and Central America. I've been in touch with a lot of addicts, thousands and thousands. And if people, I do have a private practice where people can see me individually, but that's not my favorite. just sitting in the office all day. I have an office and I pay rent every month, but I'm not there very much. I do like to go to people's homes. I think we see them on a different level when they're in their home. So when I get a call, I say, can I come over and visit? And they're kind of surprised about that. But I can see the whole family and what's happening in the dynamic and where they really are. There's nothing like the life of recovery. I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous. We are all over the world. We're in something like 365 countries all over the world. The 12-step program gave me that connection that I had been missing for a very long time. And the women in the recovery room surrounded me and said, we are going to love you until you can love yourself. And today I do that for other women. I still attend meetings on a weekly basis at home. I'm there for the woman that is now walking through the door and she needs someone to love her. I have sponsees that I help, and I have a sponsor at home that still helps me to this day. I've had my one sponsee for 25 years. I said my marriage didn't last that long, unfortunately. But it's about women helping women, and it's about making that connection, and it's about making a spiritual connection. Thanks so much for letting me share.
Thank you, ma'am. Please, ma'am.
I've learned a lesson today already about not relying on technology because all my notes are on that PowerPoint. So I'm going to have to try and remember what I planned to say. I've really enjoyed listening to Pat and Mary and Alice, and actually so much of what has been said already is kind of going to be backed up with what I'm saying. But I'm taking a slightly different angle on this. I am also recovered addict. I was an alcoholic. I never admitted to it. I could only say that once it was in the past. But my issue was with alcohol for many, many years. So I'm going to talk about how yoga helped me and how yoga can help others to rewire the mind. So you can do the next slide. So addiction is an outward manifestation of a break in the circuit in the mind. It's a brain disease. We know that it affects the neural pathway, the reward pathway of the brain, that makes us think that alcohol, drugs, sex, Facebook, whatever it is, makes us feel good. So we want to keep doing it. But that gets hijacked by whatever our addiction is until it hits self-destruction rather than feeling good. Can you move on to the next one, please? So with yoga, many people in the West particularly think yoga is just an exercise class that you go to once a week to get a nice flexible body. And it has that benefit, but there's a way of life associated with yoga that can bring you to a place of recovery. There are a lot of parallels, as I discovered recently when I've been writing a book about this, that there are a lot of parallels between the spiritual path and the path of recovery. It's a similar sort of goal that we're aiming for. So I'm going to talk a little bit about recovery and how yoga can help us to enter a new awareness of ourselves and our lives that can lead us to recovery. We look at the whole person and not just the substance. We need to move away from this and thinking that addiction is about the substance. It's not, it's about the person. And how yoga can help you to gain insights into yourself and how you manage your lives. And how it can teach you resilience. And I'll be speaking in more depth about resilience later this week. And how yoga can actually help recovery not be easy, because I'm not ever going to tell anyone that it was easy, but it can help you do it with ease, that it can by being gentle on yourself. So, in order to be able to recover from addiction, you need to. There's lots that needs to be done, but we need to move beyond the demands of the ego. The ego says, "I want a drink. I'm going to have a drink," or whatever else the issue is. I want. We need to move away from that, and yoga can help us to find ways to reduce the noise of the ego. We need to look into ourselves, to not just that physical presence that you see in front of the mirror, but to look deep into who you really are. Who's that person you've been hiding behind the alcohol, the whatever else it might be. And recovery is a path to freedom. I feel freer now than I ever have, and I have less materially than I used to have, but I have freedom. I make my own choices about what I'm going to drink in the evening now. Do I have this herbal tea or that herbal tea? But I'm free to make choices that I was never able to make when my life was dictated by a need for wine. She's there. So when we entering a new awareness, it's that moment when you realise, I need to change. This isn't working. I need to change. And you can either enter that awareness, there are many ways that you can deal with it. It can either be a fear-based need to change, or I can see a better future for myself driven. So it's that realization that you're in chaos. Your life is out of control. 12 steps talk about that more, that surrender, that acceptance that you need help. So I was in chaos, realized I was in utter chaos. And then instead of fighting against that chaos, accepting it with calm, and not being scared of the chaos, but looking beyond the chaos to see what could happen next. We're looking at the whole person in yoga. It is very much a holistic approach. As Mary was mentioned, that what happens in the mind does translate into the body. So any problems in the mind will manifest themselves in the body in some way. In yoga, we talk about Adi Vyadi, which is mind and body. It's that whole mind-body connection. So there's a concept in yoga known as the fourfold awareness, which is developing awareness of the body first, and then looking at the emotions and how our emotions affect our body. And if you're feeling confident, you stand tall. If you're not, you hunch. And it just, even on a day-to-day basis, your mind affects how you present your body. And the thoughts that we have, how the thoughts and how we deal with our thoughts can affect our mind and our body. And then the higher self is that spiritual, that connection to spirit, and however you feel comfortable talking about spirituality, whether it's going to the top of a mountain and looking at how beautiful the world is, or going to a church and praying to your God, it doesn't matter. It's that connection with what is inside you and connects you to that thing that's bigger than yourself. Insight. We need to, when we're in addiction, very often we don't look. I drank every night because I didn't want to look at who I really was. I didn't like who I was, and I didn't want to examine that person very much. But through yoga, I was forced to. There's a practice known as swadhyaya, which is self-study, which means you have to get to know who you really are in order to find the bits of yourself that you want to change and ways to change that. So through this practice of swadhyaya, I learned who I am and why I'm the way I am. And once I was able to look at the past issues, that programming that we set ourselves up for from the time we first take our first breath, I was able to see the patterns that happened when I was so tiny. I had I can't blame myself for it anymore, because things happened when I was a child, and I interpreted them a certain way that led to the way I eventually led to viewing myself, but they weren't real. It was just the perceptions of a child. So having that insight into yourself can help you to make peace with your past, with things that have hurt you in the past, to make peace and forgive and move on, happy and free. And resilience is vital. You can give up a substance, but as Pat was saying, that if you just give up the substance, you're going to replace it with something else. I've tried in the past to give up smoking and drinking, and I've done exactly the same. I've ended up putting on half a stone because I ate my body weight in sweets. So resilience is that ability to cope, and it's developing that inner strength that means that when the stressful situation is going to hit you, you're not going to reach for the wine, you're not going to reach for the cigarettes, you're not going to reach for the food or whatever you're going to then substitute. You're going to just take a deep breath and deal with it and then move on. That you don't need to linger on that stressful situation. You can actually just move on and move into a happier life where you dealt with the problem. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about this more on Friday, but I've looked at how we develop resilience, and I've come up with a bit of a model of the circle of resilience, and I'm going to be explaining that in my speech on Friday sometime. But in the circle of resilience, if we're trying to make a massive change very quickly, we're going to fail. So we need to take baby steps. We need to do it with kindness to ourselves and people around us. We need to be treated with kindness as well. I did it as a celebration. We celebrate the small, the tiny changes. You know, if you get through that first cigarette, you don't have that first cigarette, you manage to prolong it for an hour. You can celebrate that. That's a step forward. And I did it the day that you have to, because it also means do it daily. So it's keeping that practice going until it becomes your new habit. You need your support, and with you can have external support, but it's also developing that faith in yourself so that you can be your own support network. Gratitude is hugely important, and that relates to, you were talking about energy and looking for the positivity, and if we're looking at what we're grateful for in life, then it's much easier to find things to be grateful for than if we're always looking at the negative. What we focus on is what we see. And vision, once we get to a certain point, like when I stopped drinking, and I didn't tell myself for weeks that I was giving up drinking, because I knew that if I thought I was giving up drinking, the first thing I'd want to do would be go and buy some more wine. So I kept saying, I'm not drinking today, I'm not drinking today. And then eventually, when I was suddenly realizing how much healthier I felt, suddenly then I could see a future where I didn't drink. And then I started talking about I'm not drinking. That took about 6 weeks before I was able to get to that place where I could actually have that vision of a future that I liked, that didn't have alcohol in it. Up until then, it'd been quite a scary idea. So the last one is ease. Now, this is a bit of a joke about Western perceptions of yoga, really. That in yoga, in the West, we talk about yoga and we think about it as being the exercise class. And so it's all about the asana. Well, it's not. Yoga is not all about the asana. But in some ways, if you look at this acronym, it could be. Yoga is all about our attitude to life, how we are to ourselves, how we are in the world. It's about the position we take in life, how we stand in the world, not just physically, but emotionally as well. It's about developing attitude, developing skills. I've had to develop new skills of sobriety. We need to develop these new skills of getting through life without our crutch. Nature, it's recognizing our nature and our connection with nature, our oneness with the universe, with the world, with each other, with all of life, and feeling that connection and so we're not feeling isolated. We're not alone in this. We're never alone in the world. And altitude, it's that raising ourselves to new heights. And I'm really disappointed my friend Ian is not here right now, because I wanted to talk about the new high that you can find in sobriety. Because I'm happier now than I was ever when I was drinking. And it's genuine happiness now. It's not the, I've had a bottle of wine and I'm really drunk kind of happiness. This is real happiness, because I now am happy in who I am, and I never was before. So ease, one of the core things in yoga is breathing. What can be easier than breathing? But most of us don't do it right. And if we breathe properly, if we learn to take deep, slow breaths and really focus our mind on our breath, a whole lot of problems go away. Our body needs us to take deep breaths. And if we don't do that, then it affects our mental health, it affects our physical health. So when we breathe properly, life feels easier and our bodies are healthier. And I'm going to be talking about the breath in more detail tomorrow when I'm talking about yoga for health. We can move on to the next thing. So again, just to recap, that to rewire the mind, these are the steps that we can look at, how yoga can help us to rewire the mind and take ourselves into a new, happy, healthy future. So thank you. I think there's a last slide. There are my talks, and if you'd like to contact me or speak to me afterwards, I would love to talk about this more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all of you. Now we can have question and answer sessions for up to 5 to 10 minutes. If anybody has any questions regarding this topic, then you can ask our guest.
Actually, this question is for any or all of you. So what is the rate of efficacy or number of people that you've treated that actually have recovered?
That's a really tough question because not everybody comes back to tell you. So when people ring me up and they say, are you 100%? I say no, and I can't guarantee it because I'm relying on the client to do the things that I'm asking them to do. If they don't use the tools, they're not going to get better. Of the people who come back to me, they're reporting that they've recovered, but there are some people who go away, you don't hear from them, and perhaps it wasn't from them. So it's a tough question, I don't know the answer.
Treatment centers have really struggled with this because what their stats are depending on is they're calling up the clients that have gone through treatment, and it's all self-reporting. So it's a hard take. I will say this, that I ran a treatment center in Belize, Central America. It was very small and intimate, and we seem to have a really great success rate there.
Well, I can't answer that question because I'm very new to this still. I'm going to be, when I go back home, that first week after I go back home, I'm starting working with 3 different organisations working with addicts. So I'll be able to give you that information maybe in a few months' time. But I do know that the research that I've seen, there's not an awful lot of research being done at the moment into yoga for recovery, but I've seen one piece of research that I love, and it talks about that using yoga as part of a recovery program can increase or reduce the chance of relapse by about 30%. So it does really help people to be stronger.
It is a very difficult question to answer, but I can give you examples of clients that I have seen and still see. For cocaine, for example, I have a client who stopped taking cocaine after 1 session, but came back for reinforcement because it's so important to reinforce the treatment so that it's more lasting. That was probably about a year ago, and he's come back to see me because he's got the aftermath issues, problems with relationship in his family, lack of self-esteem, confidence, and I'm working with him, counselling him, not with the hypnotherapy now, but counselling him. I have similar cases with alcohol as well, where they've actually given up, but they come back for the other issues after a period of time. I've got a young man who I stopped taking cannabis 2 years ago. As a student, he was going to go and do his master's, and he wanted to stop the addiction before he went abroad to do a master's. And it's 2 years later that I see him again now to help him with his self-esteem and confidence. And of course I was able to say, have you come back to see me about the cannabis? Oh no, I haven't done that again. It's just the way I feel now about myself. He had depression after finishing his studies. He didn't sort of feel he got any direction in life. So he's come to see me to build him up again. So yes, there are obviously people that come for treatment that you never see again. And hopefully you don't see them because it worked. You know.
I wanted to ask Mary. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. I wanted to ask Mary, you spoke about the id, ego and superego. And I just wanted to clarify one thing. We hear about id all the time, but you said it was instinctual. And so can one presume that it's coming from over a couple of past lives that becomes your instinctual ego for the present life, which is a part of your past life makeup? Or how would you explain that? And then you said ego comes through the experiences during the lifetime. and the superego is the judgmental ego that keeps things in checks and which balances out. So even that, I would like to know about the superego a little bit more, if you could explain, please, because judgmental and balancing out in terms of us, external environment, internal environment, what? Thank you.
Yes. Well, as I said, this is research done by Sigmund Freud, which is many years ago. But it's a way of explaining the internal workings of your conscious and subconscious. And the id is about our natural instinct, like you were saying about I want to drink, I want to do the bad things. The ego trying to do the right things, and then the super ego like a judge between the two. I often think that perhaps you've experienced having an argument with yourself about something, which I think I'd like to do this, but now I don't think I should. That's a bit of the id and the ego. You mentioned past life. That's quite possible. I mean, issues that we deal with hypnotherapy, for example, eating too much. Why do I crave chocolate, for example? Instances where it's been so very difficult to pinpoint and make that change. We have to understand exactly where it came from. So we might regress to young years, but it has been shown that regression to a past life is responsible. And once you understand what's happened in a past life, you can begin to deal with it and understand it and make that change. If the id is the instinct, and it's going to be the instinct within all of us, and the super ego is about our right or wrong, and there will be an imbalance within different individuals. But it is the complexity that we have to deal with in amongst everything else that's going on in our head. I don't know whether that helps you answer it.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Thank you for the talk, it was lovely. Can you explain to me the fine line between enabling and adding? Because this word enabling has been something I've come across quite often. Like, I've been told, ways you help and how do you help, and can be accused of enabling them by supporting them, even emotionally.
I would say the person that comes to see me has reached a plateau. They want the change, but they don't know how to do it. And so the counselling and talking will help them to start with. They need to accept the fact that they want to go ahead with the hypnotherapy session, to accept that it's going to be like meditation, that connecting with their inner self, and that it's the inner self that will talk to the conscious to make the change. It's not going to happen from me. It's going to happen within them. I'm just a catalyst, an initiator for that to help. If the person doesn't really want the change, if they don't want it to happen, it won't. I've had a smoker come to see me 3 times who couldn't stop. And he said to me on the 3rd time, he said, you know, there's a part of me that really doesn't want to stop. And I said, well, that is the part of you that won't let you stop. So you're actually wasting your time coming to see me, because until you want that change genuinely within yourself, within your heart, it won't happen. So we're facilitators, really. Does that help?
Yes, so I mean, the way that I was trained is that everybody has the resources within themselves, and your job is to bring those resources out. So it can be really tempting because, you know, I was a manager for years, and I want people to get well. There are times when I really want to jump in and tell them how to get well, but that would be how I would get well. So it's for me to find out how they would get well, what they already know, to bring it to the surface so that they can do it. So it's that the facilitation and you know, the building on the resources they've got, but to undermine the part of them. It's always a part of them that's doing something, and there are very specific techniques to understand what the part is trying to do, because the part of them that does the bad behaviour has a reason for doing it. It might be to numb them off, or it might be to not acknowledge something. So the work that we do is with the part as well. When we were talking about sort of superego, I mean, the unconscious is responsible for so much of what happens every day. If you picture it as the elephant, then the conscious is the rider sitting on top of the elephant trying to steer it in a new direction. And in order to do that, we're talking to the elephant, you know, because the rider's got its own thing going on, but we're talking to the subconscious and trying to attract it in a different direction. Unless you make that future so delicious that the elephant wants to walk that way, the rider doesn't stand a chance at all.
I work with a lot of families, and so parents especially, but parents, siblings, all family members go through, am I helping, am I not helping? And this is what I ask every person to do. Call me before you make the decision of what you're going to help with. And are you helping aid the disease of addiction? Are you giving them money for drugs? Or are you trying to help towards their recovery? I don't know if that helps.
Money-wise, you have to live. You have no control where they take the money. And my understanding of the id and the ego and the superego is a very physiological point of view, the brain's point of view. The id is the reptilian brain, the very distinctive brain, which now has been proven a lot of the cells, speaking about generational, up to 7 generations have memories. That could be behind our reptilian brain, which is just about feeling good in that moment of time. The ego, what I would understand the ego, emotional world, which is the active of my life, and triggered off by the emotions that we go through. And obviously our superego, which is the intellect, my self, frontal lobe, which where we need to understand and make decisions to possibly deal with these things. And all of this is when there's a breakdown with those 3 brains working together. And it could be over a period of time, obviously, and obviously the drugs and the alcohol, again, impacts that. But people around with love, as you would say, is, it's a tough one because that's a process. We get to the point of recovery, it is a process. And a lot of support. And nowadays, this whole fine line of what is enabling, what support, what is loving, what is caring. This is where I've come across quite a lot of questions around that. Because people have different opinions on that. Again, based on their own association, everything is based on their own associations and how the spirits life.
And it really depends on the individual. And so what I would recommend is get someone that could view the situation from afar. So not a family member, but maybe a professional therapist even, just to get better direction, because each individual case is its own. If the person's 50 or if they're 80 or if they're, 15. So every situation is different.
Okay, I'll talk to you afterwards. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, all of you.
This start coming now.
And if we have PowerPoint, you are checking. كعربي منين كعربي من لبنان.
In a nice way. Usually it's good in a nice way. Yeah, you look I'm a teacher and I work like 20 years ago. 40 years ago. More human, exactly. Hey, you see? It's funny, I look like my father and nothing on him. When I was teaching last year, everyone was talking to me. Muy bien, si quieres practicar podemos.
Hello everyone, very warm welcome to all of you to Women Economic Forum 2016. Our today's session is a New Horizon for Humans World on Earth, and this will be conducted by Dr. Alia Al-Rafia and Dr. Veldaji. So we can start our session from right now. I would like to invite Dr. Veldaji. Oh, okay, yes, speaking. Okay, sorry. I would like to invite Dr. Alia Al-Rafia. Please, ma'am, come and share your thoughts.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everyone who is here. And I'd like just to say how happy I was when I heard Harvey talking today, because I think every word that we would like to say, that we have hope. And from there, I think I will take my talk about the new horizon. Actually, what I'm going to talk about is, first of all, that we should fill our hearts with hope. Second, what is the limitations of our set mind in the modern and post-modern era, and how we can conquer or get over this kind of limitation. First of all, let us see why it is limitation. But I prepared this my talk, and I put a lot of effort in just phrasing everything. So excuse me if I'm very sorry, because of course I wish I could say everything from my heart, and that's what I'm always doing. But it's because of the importance of this meeting, then I was preparing too hard. So that's why I'm going to read, but I'm going to read slowly. It's like just talking. I hope. I think there are good reasons for suggesting that we are going through a transitional period. New meanings are gradually unfolding from the ongoing changes worldwide. And I can perceive a new horizon for our human population. I can really perceive a new horizon on our human population. From the depths of the darkness emerges light. The dawn shows itself, and the sun gradually fills the space with its light. We live an era where real challenges are threatening life on this earth. Meanwhile, we are witnessing the spiritual uplift and consciousness shift. We are experiencing a turning point, a transformative phase where the emergence of the feminine is bringing balance to the world. This moment in our history is very significant because we need to change our mindset that has been constructed through the last 2 centuries. We have become imprisoned in one dimension of life and lost our direction as human beings. Fortunately, more and more awareness is making its way to us, and new sciences seem to emerge with different premises and promises. First, we need to be aware of the limitations of the modern and postmodern era. The modern era, classical modern science, deal with the limited dimension of organized order of the universe. It sailed on the surface and formed a dogma of its own. It presumes that everything known by our intellect alone. The positivist approach further canceled the gap between epistemology, what we know, and ontology, the existence of something out there, assuming that knowledge and reality are one and the same thing. Moreover, spirituality, divinity, and other metaphysical experiences were sidelined and ridiculed. With the rise of modernity, we perceive the universe, with all its magnificence, energy, as a lifeless, huge machine, and reduce the complexity of the relationship between natural phenomena to a shallow relationship of cause and effect. With the growth of the classical scientific methods, humans gradually denied their transcendental nature, perceiving themselves as mortal beings whose spirit and emotions are manifestation of their physical existence. No more. As such, humans fail to relate to their inner selves and divorce themselves from the energy of life in the whole cosmos. It has been an era where humans became prey to spiritually destructive values and drawing their self-image as honorable creatures. As a result, the 20th century witnessed 2 world wars, the killing of millions of people, and till now we are suffering from regional conflicts almost everywhere on the globe. In search for stable ground, religious dogma has had the suitable environment to grow, and postmodernism prevailed to counter certitude, fundamentalism, and prejudice. At first glance, postmodernism seems to reject epistemic certainty, negates human ability to reach absolute reality, and stresses relativity. However, emphasis on absolute relativism and the stress on the particularity of each culture is another way of absolutism, which would hinder any common ground for communication. Following this paradigm would lead humankind to the abyss of loss, isolation, and misinformation. Our ancestors did not have the knowledge about the world which we have, but they were able to communicate with nature and see the unifying element in nature. We have lost this ability, and with it lost the meaning of life. Life without meaning leads to self-destruction and world destruction. Despite this overwhelming darkness, I can see the glimpses of light and a new horizon in our poetry-verse. Gathering women in this forum, for example, as well as in other forums, enhances the growing awareness of the spiritual dimension of life around the world. This is a promising phenomenon. These growing movements respond to the increasing needs of humankind search for meaning. Now we are about to build a new paradigm. A new paradigm has started to emerge, removing the previous models of dichotomizing the world into opposites and breaking barriers between nations and civilizations. In this new paradigm, the existence of the transcendental order does not contradict with its inherited nature within the universe. It is an all-encompassing order, yet it resides in our human hearts. It's unknowable, yet present through spiritual experiences. This is an old paradigm, which is being revived today in new dimensions that fit with the ever-growing knowledge about ourselves and the universe. For example, the school of critical realism introduces the term meta-reality to denote an undefined, non-attainable reality. This school distinguishes between knowledge as a human experience that's ever-growing in search for meaning and interpretation, with the realization that humans need to critically reconsider their knowledge. This approach rejuvenates the intellectual and spiritual freshness in our souls and create an authentic wonder which always lead to the advancement in all fields of knowledge, whether scientific, religious, or spiritual. Critical realism combines spirituality with critical thinking and emphasizes the need to question our knowledge endlessly and to keep seeking reality indefinitely. Unlike postmodernism, which asserts absolute relativism and uncertainty, critical realism differentiates between ontology and epistemology. On the epistemological level, humans will never reach absolute reality. They constantly need to examine and re-examine their knowledge. This path of continuous reflection makes the life worth living. On ontological level, humans share universal tendency as represented in search for meaning of life. It is because of that pioneers in various fields, prophets, spiritual teachers, did not stop to wonder and to look critically into human achievements. They created shifts in science and cultural dogma. In the very process of expanding our knowledge lies the heart of spirituality. In the very process of expanding our knowledge lies the heart of spirituality. This new paradigm has been developed gradually through fields that seemingly appear to be afar from cultural, spiritual, or intellectual realms. Einstein's theory of relativity shaped the premises of scientific method of his time, brought another dimension, another way of understanding our human existence. His conclusions paved the way for intellectuals, philosophers, and spiritualists to reconsider some of the taking for granted religious concepts, such as envisioning the conflict between body and soul as means of purification. The new vision of purification focuses on the process of achieving peace from within through the reconciliation between our desire as human and our spiritual needs. The quantum mechanics in the field of physics reveals a non-comprehensible interconnectedness between the observer and the observed. And it introduces new understanding of human nature relationship and emphasizes their interconnectedness. This new understanding has its impact on thinkers, philosophers, as well as historians, anthropologists, and sociologists. In the last book he published for his death, the spiritual culture historian Thomas Berry said, I quote, and so he said that if we ever hope of saving the world from the incoming environmental crisis, we have to be aware of our interconnectedness with all the creature and respect nature. It is amazing that Jungian psychology reveals our interconnectedness from another perspective. Through his study of history, mythology, and his own life and dreams, Jung came to the conclusion that we have shared archetypes on the level of our deep unconsciousness. That means humans are connected to each other on the subconscious level, and they share together the known and the unknown past experiences. They believe that the past lives in our present. Once we grasp this awareness, the past lived in the present, then we can live the present as part of the future. The future is not a time to come. The future is not a time to come. It is a process of the extended now. Through this perception, we may work positively to change the world. As a result, we should take on our shoulder the responsibility for creating a better world and not to lose hope about the challenges which we are facing. We should take this responsibility now. We are creating now our future in everything, in everything. On the other hand, it's young who tied together the religious experience with the psychological process toward an individuation or self-realization. By introducing the self-archetype as the center energy which balances the inner life, the spiritual life, it paves the way to energize a healthy ego. A healthy ego. We don't have to fight our ego. We have to make it healthy. This is our way to bring spirituality into action. Bring spirituality into action. And to make our human oneness a reality. We need our ego to work upon the world. We should be motivated by higher principles inspired from higher source, the self. Awakening this awareness, we move toward creating balance between the limited and the unlimited, the seen and the unseen, the individual self and the whole encompassing self. Reaching this inner balance creates peace within our heart, enable us to create peace around, and it empowers us indefinitely. Unfortunately, the residues of the past still work of the political level and the international relations. We still witness rulers who play power games and who may use unethical principles to defame their opponents or trigger the impulse of selfishness and superiority to gain popularity in order to win their power battles. On the level of the international relation, there is a grave negligence of the challenges that our world faces as a result of climate change. The so-called developed countries care less about our Mother Earth and think more of how to maintain exhausting its natural resources for the sake of their own interests. We still suffer from what may be called illiterate spirituality, which was blended with the era of modernity. As the former president of Czech Republic Havel notices, man as an observer has become completely alienated from himself as being. Eric Fromm, on the other hand, noticed that humans in modern era are fleeing from themselves by indulging themselves in the limiting beliefs. We are in an era of transition, and we have to move ahead to change our mindset towards awareness of the spiritual aspects of the universe and of ourselves. Spirituality, as some of contemporary philosophers notices, encompasses a wide range of positions and claims. As such, it has become an expanded concept. In its most interesting incarnation, it addresses in various ways the fundamental human need to find meaning in reality, to connect emotion and reason, to find value in being, and preserve a connection through experiences. We are now moving toward a new era where a holistic approach is not intellectually dogmatized. It's not intellectually dogmatized. Rather, it is existentially experienced and shared through love, mercy, and compassion. I can see the emergence of a new horizon for our human voyage on Earth. I can see it very clearly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your wonderful thoughts. Now I would like to invite Dr. Beltagi to share his thoughts. Please.
Good afternoon, dear participant. I'm glad to speak to you this afternoon. I'm not one of the sisters, although in all my life I support sisters. And by the way, Professor Alia Awafia, she's professor of anthropology. She's my wife, and she is as well. She's from Ancient University, but they wrote in the program that I am in the Women College. I wish I am, but I deal with science. The story of my life is related to science, and therefore I was very much interested in empowering women scientists as well as empowering the farmers in the field. I mean, more than 60% or 70% of the economy, in farming economy, is on the shoulder of women in the field who support man. Not only this, they take care of the children, they take care of everything. And the story goes, they are responsible. And the word responsible really count. If we talk about sustainable development, if we don't have responsibility, we have nothing. But they are responsible. Some, even beyond several men who can take the money and throw it away, and therefore working with different communities around the world, because I had the chance to head international organization dealing with agriculture all over the world. And therefore seeing the types and the behavior of the different communities. There's communities whereby the marketing is done by the women, and the money, usually they take care of it, then they can run the house in a very orderly way. But on the other hand, other models where the farmer takes the money of the crop, sometimes it's wasted. You go and get married again and again, and you never take care of his household, and therefore things is not very well organized. This is just at the beginning, but let me just go back to what I really would like to say today to you and share with you. Professor Alia, what I'm going to say is just elements, expanding elements of what she was talking about. We talk about a world which is facing great challenge. And if we are in the verge of a new horizon, yes, we are, because there is no way out if we don't change. We have a climate change which is haunting the whole planet, this little planet we live on, where our ancestors, our gatherers and hunters, has played a role, but again, the woman has preserved humanity. Men was very courageous to go out, they never come back because they go and hunt creatures which is far away from them, then they've been eaten sometimes, they never come home. But woman has preserved this humanity, and still is. But this global warming is haunting the place. We have financial tsunami and financial crisis, which are affecting our economy up till now. It's not only a couple of years ago. We have as well regional conflict, and we have terrorism everywhere. Terrorism of the dogmas and people who does not think of others. We are not here in any mean would like to explain how this happened, but this is happening. That's why we are on the verge of transitional period. We are on the verge of transformation. If we don't move with this transformation, if we don't put ladders to go from one level to another to achieve this horizon, I think we will get stuck and humanity will face distinction. How can we navigate toward a world with peace and prosperity and stability for all? This is issues which we have to look at with dignity. Human dignity is very important, and we are disregarding this for other reasons which I may come to it later. But let me give you an example of the climate change. The climate change issue is haunting us. I was member of the international board which put the 2006 document on the impact on global ecosystem out of the change of climate change. And this was an early wake-up call for humanity. this 11 reports came out from the United Nations. It was just shaking us that, watch it, things is changing, and sometimes it's irreversible. What we have done, what the world leader has done, either ignore it or say, we and them. And the idea of we and them was led by a leader of a country which I love its people, but he was a leader of a huge country. And he said we and them. Once you start saying we and them, you don't see the interest of the globe. You don't see the interest of people. Climate change is going to impact, it will reduce by 2040 to a level of 50% all the agricultural production. It will have an impact on outmigration. 200 million people will have an exodus from their own homes to somewhere else. They will cause socio-political upheaval. And this is not measured. We will just disregarding this. The National Academy of Science from the country where this leader said we and them has produced a wonderful research saying climate change is happening. Be careful. This is the American Academy of Science. And this was published in the Washington Post, but this was ignored and ignored. I mean, I would like to mention for fairness for this country, we have leaders that, like Al Gore, who said, watch it, things is changing and we need to do something. I once said that Al Gore movie should be played every day for the leaders of the world in order for them to recognize things is changing. I was a vice chair of a board for the Global COP Diversity Fund, and we had our meeting in Svalbard, where we built with the Scandinavian or the Nordic Gene Bank vaults in the glacier ice to preserve the genetic diversity of mankind. And we have done this, and when we were there, they took us in a tugboat, and you can see the glacial ice is coming down by chunks. Each chunk is about from 2 to 4 tons coming on the sea. Then we have to wake up. Things is happening. The sea level is going to increase. Temperature is going to increase by 4 centigrade by year 2040. And therefore, we have to be very careful. My country, Egypt, is very much threatened of the increase of the sea in the Mediterranean, because we will lose the delta, whereby more than 70% of the people live, their livelihood depend on the delta and its fertile land, and let alone the increase in temperature. But having said this, we need to know that fortunately, science and new science is bringing new hope. Genetic engineering, for instance, will give us tolerant plants to increase temperature, as well as it will give us tolerance to plant, to flora, to insects and pesticides, as well as insects, as well as bacteria and fungus, which will affect the disease of the plants, as well as animal production. New avenues in genetic engineering, not the genetic engineering we know 10 years ago. I mean, lately we have something called gene editing, whereby you can edit, like you are editing book, the future of a group of cells or organs or a child or a plant. And this is amazing because you can really decide. Meanwhile, it's very helpful because you can early on decide not to have a child with any malfunction in its cognitive ability by knowing where is the genes which will cause this and eliminate it through gene editing. But meanwhile, this gives power to the people who are doing this to do something else. Then this takes us to ethics. Then science without ethics will be like that we are creating a Frankenstein style in the future. Then science needs to go hand in hand with ethical code of conduct, and therefore we can have a safe utilization of this new knowledge. But if I just go through other aspects which relate to ethics, it's a prejudice, racism, as well as discrimination, which is happening around the world. It's again, it's embedded in me and them. not we. And this is a great crisis. I mean, can you imagine that I have attended, I mean, I don't want to mention numbers, but I've attended several of the international meetings for climate change. One of them was in Copenhagen, and the people in Copenhagen was wonderful. They put signs everywhere in the city saying, Copenhagen. This is the hope of the world, that in Copenhagen we will have an adaptation fund, and we will have a fund which will help the developing countries to grow under this change of climate change. Therefore, they can adapt to this. Copenhagen didn't work, and we came out of Copenhagen with no hope because there was no political will. The next meeting, we were in Cancun, in Mexico, wonderful Mexico. And then the motto there was, in Cancun, yes we can. And in Cancun, we didn't do anything. We came out, this is the nations of the whole world. We came out with niente, with zilch, because of lack of political will. Thanks God, the last meeting in Paris, with the leadership of President Hollande, when he said, we are not going to do anything on this direction unless we don't say that we are, as members of the nations of this world, we are not going to compete with each other, but we are going to cooperate with each other. What's the difference between the two trends? I hope that the signal he said will be taken, because this is the challenge. He has to change, or we have to change a lot of things to move forward. Therefore, if we talk about knowledge-based economies, if we talk about change through knowledge-based economy, then knowledge without wisdom will never work. Knowledge without morality will never work. Knowledge without spiritual aspects and respect to each other is not going to work. Therefore, it's only how we can see that we are all one. I cannot repeat what Professor Rafa has said, because what is said is right, in my opinion, is the right path forward. And I think what we heard this morning from the leader of the Women Economic Forum is very true, and I hope that every one of us can participate in this process. I do thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts. Now I would like the audience, if they have any questions regarding this topic, then they can ask one by one. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for the nice conversation we had just now. I want to ask you, don't you think...
Can we know you are from where?
Of course. My name is Gabriela. I'm from Bulgaria. I'm one of the founders of Impact Hub Sofia. So I wanted to ask you, we know that with the development of technology and science, don't you think that also there will be new questions regarding morality and spirituality? Because as we discover new and new things, maybe we can become spiritual and spiritual enough to overcome these challenges now, but there are more and more challenges coming with every discovery that we have. Don't you think that this, let's say, fight between good and evil, let's say it like this, just to generalize it, don't you think it's a process, that it's all the time, we cannot just receive this clarity and this enlightenment and just stay like this? We have to evolve every time when there is a new discovery, for example. This is just, I wanted to see what you think about this.
You asked me for it.
It doesn't matter, both of you.
Yes, that's right. No, I mean, first of all, I hate to see or hate to think of evil and good are finding each other. I imagine that it's what we call evil is just lost, is ignorance, is the people who don't understand. And that's why, maybe what I said was very academic or choose some kind of terms and so on, but it's what's behind is that the core of change that should be core of how we think ourselves in relation to nature, in relation to ourselves, in relation to each other. So this is a very core thing. And where what we call morality is also very deceiving word, because we have that kind of set of mind, we dogmatize, sometimes we dogmatize morality. And we need to be just flexible enough to interact with, from the deep of our heart. Making our experience is the dominant thing that is, and it's coming from love. So instead of thinking about good and evil and bad and not bad or something, we have to think of how to really connect and connect deeply first within ourselves. So then we will discover that it's when we realize who we are, then we realize that we are not individual, one human being. We, that's which my husband was saying, that we realize that on the human plantation, by the way, I am a founder of a foundation which calls the Human Foundation. So deep in our heart, we are on that level of foundation, on the human foundation, we are actually connected, we are one humanity. So when we move from that kind of, of that consciousness, then we are doing good for ourselves with the world. That's very inspiring in science, in our relationship in family, in social work, in liberation movement, in anything, in any way, because we know that we're not fighting against the other. We are fighting for, and I am using fighting just metaphorically, we are fighting for the others, because we are part of them, and we don't see them as separate from us. So, in science, what my husband was talking about, genetic engineering, that's very scary. That's a very scary field, because it can be, it can be very useful. It can be very harmful. So when we are spiritual illiterate, then that kind of advancements in science, maybe it's going to be very harmful. So we have to be spiritually literate. We have to really think about our own spirit. Not that doesn't mean that we have to stop all the advancement in science, or to say to the scientists, they don't work in this direction or that direction. But prior to that kind of advancement, we have to change our mindset, which I really start to think, because we are living in the culture of modernity. Modernity became a culture, never mind, and it creates some kind of conflict between tradition and what's going on in science. And that shouldn't be happening, because both should be really, there is no something like old wisdom and modern set mind of modernity. There is only ignorance, and then we have to reconcile between the spirit and the science, between the knowledge and the moral things, if we can speak. That's what I have, but my husband wants to say something, but I'm sorry.
Let me take the mundane aspects of this. In science, we've been in fear of new knowledge through our history, through the voyage of human on this earth. Anything new, we get afraid from. When the first car started moving on the streets, people were running. This is the monastery, because they were accustomed on the horse and the carriage. I mean, the train, the plane, you can name it. But nowadays we are going to face things which we have never seen. The breakthroughs in nanotechnology, which, we have labs dealing with nanotechnology in agriculture, but we are calling for now safety committees for nanotechnology, because a nano machine which can make transformation in the cell, if you eat it, then what will happen? We need to know exactly what's with responsibility. What is nano machine? If you change the nature of an element, even gold, if you change it to nano gold, it's totally different. The behavior of the particles are different from the particles which relate to the gold. and in genetic engineering the same. Then we have to act with responsibility. But without fear, scientists has to explain the pluses and minuses. And if we don't have the courage to use science and to assess the risk, we're not going to move. And therefore we can take new science, but with reasonable assessment of the risk. Of course, there was a lot of phobia in NGOs regarding the genetic engineering in plants. Nothing happened. We have never heard about anything happening from the soya bean, which is genetically modified. Nothing. No harm up till now happened. And because you are using genes, which is in Mother Nature, you are only enhancing it. I will just sum up this with a statement saying that there is a shadow and light in every venue of new science and new knowledge. Then you have to assess the shadow and try to understand a little bit about the darkness there, but you have to take the light and move with it for the future. Thank you.
Can I have one more question? I'm sorry. Can you suggest who would be the new spiritual leaders, let's say? Because we're living in a world where it's all about science, technology, entrepreneurship. You know, we are developing so fast. Who will be the new spiritual leaders that will take this huge and very fast flow that we are in, that can make to reconcile this yeah.
I think that is every one of us in the spiritual leader. Because we, yes. And it is not now the power of the spirituality. It's not centered, not like old ages. It's everywhere. You know, I mean, when I hear anyone, I'm sure if I hear any one of you, it's like echo in my heart. That's what I'd like to say. Like when I was listening to Habib today, oh wow, this is, I take the brochure of my foundation and say that her words are written in my foundation. It's the same, you know, and so it is, now it is something that is beyond imagination, that what is going on, the shift of consciousness and the transformation is going on without any apparent leader. It's not seen, it's hidden, but it is strong, and it is energizing. And that's, yes, and that's why I think that's, you know, coming from everywhere, like I come from Egypt, people come from New Zealand, come from the United States, and just from Cyprus, from everywhere to be here. It's very energizing. That is something that will create energy and will create hope, and it has an impact beyond this, you know, small gathering. Although it's not a small gathering, but I mean it's going to be an impact on the whole, you know, on the level of the whole globe. So we have to work. We all are.
I've got a couple questions, but I'll limit it to one. I'm Edward from Canada. I agree with you, the climate is changing. I mean, I've seen that over my lifetime, and I've talked to my father, and he's also seen that in his lifetime, that things are changing. I guess I have to ask, do you think humans are arrogant in thinking they can change it to keep it as it is? When in Antarctica, we find fossils of dinosaurs and tropical vegetation. So at one point, we were a very warm planet, or the planet was shaped differently, whatever. Now we've gone through a cooling off period. You know, the dinosaurs would think, yeah, great, we get rid of these human viruses and we get back to the good life. We're now going to a global warming. Should humans not be more adaptable and say, okay, I'm going to lose my ocean front in California, and I'm going to have to move up to Nevada to have ocean front now. Will this new spirituality and feminine energy take some of the arrogance out of the human system?
Let me take the physical part, and then my wife will take the spiritual part. I mean, Saskatoon, for instance. and whereby things is melting there, and the season is differences there. You talk to your father, the farmers in Canada, doesn't matter where you are in Manitoba or in Calgary or whatever, Montreal, things is changing tremendously. What I'm saying here is that, yes, if we stop now all the lethal gases which is causing climate change, if we do this, now they are talking about 25% in the next 10 years, we are talking this 25%, and this is an impact on industry, impact on petroleum, impact on people who are doing trade for coal, coal mining and all that. It's an economical freak for certain people who deal with these businesses. But even if we stop all this, say, imagine leaders can take a decision now, stop everything which is causing the gases, which is causing climate change. It will take us 85 years to see a dent in the increase of temperature. Therefore, we're putting brakes, but the brakes was 2 centigrade, this was 10 years ago, and now we are hoping not more than 4 centigrade by year 2040. There was a report from the World Bank which said why we should avoid having a world with more than 4 centigrade. This is a reality. But in order to cope with this, we need a lot of knowledge, and share the knowledge with from the sinners to the victims. The victims are always in the developing countries. And most industrial countries which is producing this and affecting this, they have to, with responsibility, they have not only to generate knowledge, share the knowledge with these people to adapt. Then adaptation is our hope, not mitigation. Mitigation is to stop the gases. Adaptation is to have a better agro management techniques in the field, to use water better, to have genetic resources for crops which will tolerate the 4 centigrade. All this needs science, all this needs new knowledge. Then we need with the responsibility to have to share this with each other. Spiritual part of this is.
This is where science is wedded to the feminine energy. Because we cannot speak about feminine energy as something that's metaphysical. It is in action. So when my husband is talking about the ways that it should be done in order to really solve something, either we are going to survive or we are going to destroy ourselves. So the collaboration and then the compassion and the love, and then this is the motivation behind any action. And then never mind if you call it, feminine, or we don't call it feminine, but they're just coming together and being responsible for all. I'm responsible, everyone is responsible for what's going on in the climate change. When I leave the lights on and leave my room, I made something that's very bad. Because I think that it's, never mind, it's 5 minutes and coming back. For 5 minutes for everyone who is going to do the same thing is going to count. So if with that kind of awareness, with kind of that I'm not going to open the tap while I'm washing my face or something like that, and then just using what I need, that kind of appreciation and gratitude. Every day when we come up and then we find that we have the light, we have the air condition, we have all this kind of facility which is really given to us through science, and we have to be grateful for what we have, and then we have to keep that. So it's a kind of, it's an everyday life to keeping, it's not urgent, but it's an everyday life to take the responsibility for doing our duty, our responsibility, and to be aware of the threat which is coming. And it is that from everyone, the scientists, they are doing their job by searching how to do it, what can we do, and then the politicians, they have to take the same responsibility if they have this feminine power behind them, because feminine power is not something that related to men and women. It is a quality of compassion and love and the relationship. So this is something that we have. We need it very much, and as well, the same thing. It's the same need, not less than progressing and advancing in science to solve our problems.
Hello, my name is Kim Conrad. I'm from Colorado. And it's more just wanting to say a thank you. I had a huge aha when you were talking about an answer to her question about new spiritual leaders. I talk a lot about knowledge is only rumor until it becomes our body, and we become it. And when you said that we are all spiritual leaders, I saw our entire earth body and the universal body actually becoming through us as spiritual leaders. So it really truly is becoming the whole body. And I thank you for that.
I am an engineer, so perhaps I don't know if I can say some thoughts on climate change. And generally, in our era, we use alibis. Of course, there is climate change, and of course, fossil fuel gases are creating problems. This is certain. But also, we have I'll take the example from Egypt that I worked for several years. Egypt wanted to increase the production of crops. Aswan Dam has been constructed. The water that Nile was carrying, the discharge of Nile was minimized. So the discharge of sediment, the sediment transport to the coast was minimized, and then the delta started to erode. And this is not a result of climate change. This is a result from wrong strategies and human stupidity. So these kind of examples you find everywhere. So for me, being an engineer and an expert, I would say, in climate change and coastal dynamics, I'm fed up of listening to this climate change alibi, in the sense that we can do strategies, local strategies, knowing our local environment. And this is one thing I wanted to say. And then the second is that I feel that we are in a much better position now because of this digital revolution. I believe that there is a democracy in information flow. And I was yesterday in the Museum of New Delhi, and we saw that Alexander the Great, and I will use this example from my compatriot, Alexander the Great, when he was conquering Persia, Iran, today's Iran, he was a winner there of a battle, and he killed 20,000 soldiers in a couple of hours. I'm sure that those days in Canada, nobody knew that Alexander the Great was killing 20,000 people but now we all know, and we feel compassionate about what's happening in our world. So I am, in a sense, I think we are in the merge of change, and I believe that education all over this world is the most important issue, because if we don't give importance in education, we cannot have any kind of moral in growing up people, grown people. Thank you.
Well, I have great admiration for all the countries in the Mediterranean, including your beloved country, Cyprus. I've been to it several times. But I wish, let me speak about democracy and knowledge dissemination because of the digital issue. This is not true. A lot of information is not there. We are talking about science and innovations and so on. I mean, patent, as well as the intellectual property right, as well as companies. For instance, companies dealing with medicine. They have a lot of new medicine, which could be, if it is available now in the market, could make a hell of a change. But they would like first to get the money, they put in the research and development, and then after that, they release a new medicine. And therefore, it's not simple. It's not simple. There is barriers. And the barriers will never come down if we don't see ourselves as one. Because it's my company against other company, it's my nation against other nation. It's our African pride against other ethnicity. This cannot be held. Even people who are occupying countries now, they need justification. We have one single example which is still persists up till now. This is, for me, it's savagery as it was before. Cannibalism, still there. Aggression from man to man, is still there. It is in the Middle East, we live it. It is everywhere in the world. I've been working in Latin America for years. It is there.
Of course it's there.
And then we impose aggression. But the physical issue is beyond the engineers. Because now, you cannot cope as an engineer with increase of 3 meters in the sea level. Because this, with the wind, it will increase the dynamics to 7 meters. And who can afford to put a levy for this? In Venice is threatened to go down. And other countries in the Mediterranean, we worked on the Mediterranean on what we call physical adaptation for the Mediterranean countries. And we talked about how we close the sea of the Mediterranean and so on. But this is apart from this. If you're giving an example in the delta was done to increase, yes, we don't have good quality shrimps as it was before. You have erosion in the delta, it's fine, but climate change is far beyond this. The threat of climate change is far beyond this. It's frightening. And the more you know about it, really it's frightening. And it cannot be stopped without a collective political will from everybody. Not ignoring it, not brushing it under the table, because the threat is very real. I will stop here.
Just a clarification. I don't want to be misunderstood. I don't say
No.
that there are not climate changes. I say that several times climate changes are used as an alibi for not taking
Oh no,
action.
we are against this. I'm with you.
Okay,
If it is
what
used as alibi, I am against it. Yes. But if it is real threat, it's fine.
The idea you were speaking of earlier that the world is one, we should use we instead of me against them, I believe and I preach every day. But I've been asked this question before, and I've answered it in the form as you lead by example. What would you do, or what would you say to someone who is in disagreement with you, who believes that the world can't change, it's always me against them, and they have this poor mentality, and you're speaking to this person, you have to show them the compassion that the world should and can possibly have. What would you say to a person?
For me, very quickly, keep at it. Don't listen to him.
I feel that he is a victim to something, to illusion, and I wouldn't go in discussion or dialogue about that I'm right, he's wrong, but I will just, show compassion and respect, and at the same time be who I am. Because, the energy that you give when you are in peace with yourself is more powerful than any words that you are going to say. That is very important, because now we are seeing that kind of prejudice, we're seeing that kind of discrimination, and we're seeing that kind of fanaticism and fundamentalism, and then people who are as a person who is I wouldn't say lead, but I'm part of a spiritual. I always tell them, give Daesh not their action. Their action is cruel, is criminal. But these people are victims. They are the creation of our shadow. Because if we keep the hate in our mind, in our heart, against anyone, then this hate is going to materialize in certain group of people. So don't let any residues of hate towards any bad person, but just say that they are victims of ignorance because they don't understand. I could be one of them, because anyone can be one of the other whom we are blamed of, because these others are inside us. So we have to fight that kind of prejudice within us, even the prejudice against them. And in this way, if we are really in peace then it will reach them. Or if it doesn't reach them, at least it's not going to make new people who are going to be, their heart will be filled with hatred and violence. So it is just be with the quantum power, just be with the source, just be expression of that source. Then you are not by yourself. I'm not going to do anything by myself as an individual, but if I am connected to the source, really, then the source is going to be very powerful through me. Not me that I'm powerful, but it is the source whom I am connected with. So that's what I would say, because then even spirituality is not an ideology. It's an experience and it's life. You live as a spiritual being, you live with that kind of connection, then you are able to spread love, not because of anything, because you keep that connection.
Okay. Palestine would like to say something. Yeah, yeah.
What you have said is very something activist. I think it's humanity and peace are very complicated notions today in this world, and I think that the challenges are very, very big. So it's very good and it's very positive to think in this way. But I think the reality now is giving us so many, or putting us in so many challenges that it maybe keep us very positive and peaceful. But I think that the world outside is it's not the world that we have known before, like 20 years ago. So it's great, but I think I'm coming from a place of conflict. So I see that even these words and this concept is not exist anymore. So how can we really challenge ourselves with these notions and concepts? And although of the heart, the reality, we can really change the world with this concept, with your concept.
Okay, let me say something, but just I will leave here just a summary of 2 books for Dr. Alia. One of them, A Force Such as the World Has Never Known. This is Woman Creating Change. And then the other book called The Root of All Evil, but we don't have plenty of summaries. But please, if you would like to take any quotes of it, I will leave it here, as well as this pamphlet for one of the books you can take. We have a very limited number.
I have to respond to this, to your comments, because it's very important. In this book, which is The Root of All Evil, I shared the author of this book was an Israeli officer, and an American, and myself as a Muslim. And then from the witness, from what the Israeli Richard Fadik wrote in this book, I feel that I am really optimistic about the kind of concept of energy which I am advocating is going to be, this is the only solution as a matter of fact. Yes, it seems like we are dreaming. It seems like it's something that is, we are dreaming of something of a world, of a utopian world. It seems like that. But, as a matter of fact, looking at what's going on in the world, as I said, from the hidden, from that kind of energy, from being coming here with this woman, from watching the shift, for example, there is a kind of shift movement in the internet, from many people around the world, from self-development, which is spreading everywhere, from my foundation, where people are really hungry for spirituality. From all what I can see, these are signs. Change is not going to happen tomorrow, but it is, if we hold hope, then we are pushing the change forward. If we lose hope, we are not going to change anything, and then the situation is going to be worse. So I'm not a dreaming, I'm not a utopian. I am keeping hope, keep working. I know in my country the revolution did not change, didn't go the same way that we expected as Egyptian, but that will not stop me from working, will not stop me from doing something, for my country. Maybe it's going to will not show tomorrow, but I'm sure it's going to reap its fruits in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving such good thoughts.
Thank you all of you for being part of these sessions.
Thank you, my dear. Always, always.
I like that you are captain. My
I come also, we come from a place of conflict. My Serbia. Yes, you
So where did you go from this place?
يعطيك العافية.
الحمد لله. I'm taking my bag.
There's supposed to be two, but it's not two.
It's what, I think it's 6 days.
It's 2 days, basically.
Hello everyone, we will start the next session in next 5 minutes.
Dia nó của orang chắc là sini kan. Baik, lain lain sih. Lagi kau bilang. Mesti mesti dia mesti orang. Dulu banyak ini kata.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello, very warm welcome to all of you in Women Economic Forum 2016. Now we will start our session, and Doctor, please come in and share your thoughts.
Thank you. Now, here the agriculture plays a very important role in the food production, and where a lot of innovation has been done. And how the biotechnology plays a very important role in the agriculture sector, and also indirectly to help in the improvement of the economy. So the Indian agriculture is mainly depends upon the farmers, and you might have seen or read lot of there is a huge cry, and where the drought and there is no rainfall and sufficient water is not there, and where we face a lot of problems in this one, and where also we have seen the suicide deaths in the farmers' suicide death. So these are some of the problems where the because Indian economy is mainly depends upon the agriculture, and not only in agriculture, even farming of animals in the veterinary and other things, and horticulture also, where it plays a very important role. And where in this one, just I will touch upon, my senior colleagues are here, where they are basically specialized in the agriculture sector, and where now Now, the biotechnology plays a very important role. The exploitation of biotechnology development versus the developing countries. Greater difference. At the beginning of 21st century, the developing countries are moving forward, especially India, China, Brazil, South Africa, Mexico and Thailand. While Europe is cautious but moving food is not a problem. Now the technology for food versus medicine. So this is the one. Genetic engineering in medicine went ahead without any question. So over 70% drugs have rDNA intervention. So the recombinant DNA technology also plays a very important role in the production of the crop. The genetically modified technology in food and agriculture is much debated. The developing countries have started adopting this technology heavily. As of now, developing countries do not have high-end R&D capabilities for development and biosafety testing on their own. In the world population, to increase at least 10 billion over the next 50 years. Over 90 to 90% living in low-income developing countries and under conditions of poverty. More than 2 billion people have no food security, and 852 million of them are chronically malnourished. So this is another very important point. When the mother, during pregnancy, where the mother suffers from malnutrition, that will affect the growth of the baby inside the mother womb. Now 6 million children under the age of 5 die each year as a result of hunger and malnutrition. Now many killed by the effects of chronic hunger and malnutrition that leaves them weak, underweight and vulnerable. Now food production challenging, again the arable land and anything every year as it is diverted from industrial, residential, recreational and other human needs. Other resources like water, fertilizers and labor are also becoming scarce and costly. You might have seen last year how much we have suffered. We have suffered a lot because of rainfall. The water level has gone down and very difficult task in providing the water resources even for drinking purpose. So we are even in such, you see, these are all very big hotels, 5-star, 7-star hotels are there where recycling of water is taking place. The water which is there, again they recycle the treat and recycle the water. So much a problem we are facing now because of less in the rainfall. So the charging, all borewells have dried up and where we find droughts and where the farmer faces a lot of problems and he will go for his own way of this thing. Now, even the fertilizers and labor are also becoming scarce and costly. See, the fertilizers where mainly depends on the fertilizers where we are using, and that will cause a lot to the plants. Now, the more than 30% of our crop yields are lost to biotic factors like pests, diseases and weeds despite spending heavily on chemical pesticides. The pests are ever born because man has, this planet has been formed 7 billion years ago. So just it took 3 billion years just to form the life on this earth. So out of the formation of the origin of this earth, where we are facing a lot of problems in the pests. On one side the pests are evolved, and on another side the man has discovered a lot of pesticides and the chemicals to control the pest. And that will have so much of environmental impacts. Even the pesticides which we are using, so a lot of the effects on the human population. And we have seen where the storage of these pesticides leads to so many diseases, including cancer. And we have seen even a woman or a man working in industries, the pesticide industries, where it leads to the sterility. Where the production of now and what we have observed in the production of the sperms or the semen is decreasing day by day. The man is losing his reproductive potential because of all these ingredients or the environmental hazards what we are facing. Even it leads to amenorrhea or oligomenorrhea where the woman is working in such industries. Now this pesticide has to be controlled. At the same time we have to control the pest, that biological control. We can go for biological control of the pest because on one side these pests are increasing day by day, and also on another side where the man has discovered number of chemicals, and these chemicals will have so many side effects, not only in the human being, even in other life. Now crop losses due to abiotic stresses like drought, cold, heat and salinity are high and unpredictable. These are all the very serious problems where we are facing. Now two major challenges to confront: to produce enough food to satisfy the needs of the huge population, to ensure that the food is equally distributed. Poverty, lack of purchasing power. Some 42% of the world population rely on their own efforts to feed themselves. Nutritional deficiency in children and women also plays a very important role in this sector. So this is what the challenges what we faces. So number one, the effect of drought. Just now I told. So how much we are losing? The food production is going negligibly more than 50% because of water. And that is how we want to produce biotechnologically. We want to transfer the genes by cloning process that drought resistance genes. So even the less water if it is available, so it can yield. Now the another important is malnutrition. So you can see how the baby that is suffering by malnutrition suffer from many diseases. So this is the ones where if the water more and where the floods are there, then again the plant summers and will have. So many more challenges, specific genes and the QTLS have major effects. The biotechnology can play a role in these aspects. Now can biotic help? Break yields barriers, improve productivity, improve quality of foods and grains, minimize chemical inputs, pesticides and fertilizers, integrated pest management, this is also very important, disease and nutrition management plays a very important role, then drought tolerance, moisture, salinity, high temperature. Now specific problems in rural India, so that is the ones where we are facing the malnutrition, undernourishment, macronutrient deficiency, anemia in women and children, strict consumer preference, then vitamin A, iron, gelatin deficiency. As biotech can play a crucial role in finding solutions. So all these malnutrition where we are able to produce vitamin A rich crops, so the food grains. So we can replace it, so vitamin A deficiency or B or C or D, even only the D vitamin that is manufactured in our body. The rest of the vitamins where it has been made, we have to depend on the plants. Vitamin A, B complex and vitamin C and K. So all these things we have to depend on the plants because they are the one main sources where the synthesizes. But vitamin D, it is synthesized by our skin with help of ultraviolet rays. So that is the one. Now, so what are the potential applications of biotechnology and where we do stand currently? Now this is the whole story of how the biotechnology plays a very important role in the one G of animals, that is genetically engineered of animals. And that is how we are able to produce the dolly by using this technique. So where now the dolly is not there and the generations what we have seen in Weizmann Institute of Technology. Now G of biocontrol agents against plants, pests and diseases. So again, so these are the one which we produce by. Then plant protoplast fusion also plays a very important role in the combinations. So where this is the one. Then the embryo transfer technique, this is a wonderful techniques where it is a boom for sterile couples. If the couples are unable to conceive and if they are unable to have the issues, then we go for this technique. It is a wonderful technique where we collect the ovum from the woman and also from the sperm from the same couple. If they are unable to produce, then we collect from different couples. We freeze them outside, it is called in vitro fertilization. Then we transfer either the same mother or a different mother called the surrogated mother. So these are the techniques where wonderfully we practice it in animals and also now in the human being also we are practicing for the production. So this is one, that the embryo transfer and in vitro fertilization embryo transfer techniques what we are using for the sterile couples, that is a boon for the sterile couples. Now the another important one, the microorganisms. So this is another very new area where the microorganisms plays a very important role in almost all the needs of the society. You can see, you can produce vitamins, you can produce drugs, you can produce all those. So in all medical biotechnology or pharmaceutical biotechnology, we use these microorganisms for the cloning purpose. And you are aware that insulin. Now the insulin is available in the humulin, which is again a boon for the diabetic patients. Now this insulin, earlier we used to kill the animals, we used to collect the insulin. And now that has gone. Now we have transferred the gene to E. coli, that is Escherichia coli, is a bacteria, where we have transferred the human gene. It accepts the human gene, where a lot of the insulin we are producing, and this insulin we are using for the human to control the glucose metabolism in the body, to control the diabetes. So this is another, the one. And then recombinant DNA for disease diagnostics. This is another important techniques where even whether it is a plants or animals or any diseases where you come across, where you are using this technique for the diagnosis of the diseases. So this is again a boon for us. So where the diagnosis plays a very important role before the treatment. So the doctor has to diagnose first, and then you have to go for the treatment, where these techniques, the recombinant DNA for disease diagnosis is also a very important techniques where we are. The another important one, monoclonal antibody production, which plays a very important role in the cancer. Monoclonal antibodies, even polyclonal antibodies also we produces, and this produces in the bone marrow, take the cells, and we can go for this monoclonal antibodies production, which is again, interferon is also another one, so where we are using for the treatment of the very dangerous disease. Till today we are unable to find out the drug or medicine for the cancer. So why even HIV, there is AIDS? So why all these problems we are facing? Because of the genetic recombinations and mutation in the DNA molecule. And that is how this techniques where we are using, so control the diseases. In the first stage, okay, we can control. Second and third stage cancer is a universal phenomenon that also we can see in the plants also. So that is the one. Then plant tissue culture, this is another very important one. It is a boon for the agriculture people, where from one single cell you can produce millions of the plant's body, and where you can use it for the production. Banana, so many things they are supplying many of the agriculture universities where this is there, and also in basic science universities also they are culturing the tissue culture techniques, and they are supplying the plants to the farmer where this is the one. The another important one, fermentation and biofertilizers. So these are the ones where it is again a boon in the agriculture sector. So the biofertilizers and some of the microorganisms where directly they will fix the nitrogen. And you can even transfer the gene which will fix the nitrogen directly from the air. So this is again a boon in the biotechnology, where the nitrogen that will be supplied, because it's a very difficult task in the supply of nitrogen to the plants. So that is how we use the synthetic fertilizers. So now if you use these microorganisms, so where you can directly fix the nitrogen from the atmosphere, that is will be supplied to the plants, that is the one. And fermentation is a wonderful technology, and where a lot of compounds we produces for the human welfare. So these are some of things. I will not take much time because the other things are there. The insulin for diabetes, interferon for treating cancer, and hepatitis B vaccine. This is another important task for the man. So where you will find the viruses where they infect the liver, and where the man is collapsed by this. And now Shanta Biotech in Hyderabad is one of the first industry supplies to nearly about more than 70 countries in the world about this hepatitis vaccine. Even in Pune also in India, so where the Serum Institute that also supplies a lot of this hepatitis vaccine to the nearly more than 52 countries in the world. Now using living organisms to clean the environment, now we are polluting the environment, so where we are using a lot of things, so where the microorganism plays a very important role in cleaning the environment. So where you use the pesticides or the fertilizers, it will be decomposed by the microorganisms. So in cleaning environment, so many things, the microorganisms plays a very important role in keeping the good environment provided, and these organisms grown very well in the environment. Now this is the one, the improved food quality and food processing, better tasting, more nutritious and cleaner food. In any industry sector, whether you take in the agriculture sector or industrial sector or pharmaceutical, anywhere you take, in any industry you will have the upstream and downstream processing. These two processing plays a very important role in the keeping this all the improved food quality and food processing units. Now the better breeds of livestock and poultry and leaner meat and more milk and vaccines. So these are the very important aspects. So where one has to give more importance to this, and where the livestock and the poultry also plays a very important role in the diet. And even in the fisheries also, the fishes also replaces the protein, because this is the one rich protein contains amongst all the non-vegetarian. The fish is the good because the cholesterol content will be less. In other animals there will be a rich cholesterol content. Now this is the one. More milk is a standard one. Among them the mother milk plays a very important role. You cannot replace the mother. Mother is always have the highest capacity of the production of highly nutritious food is the milk. So mother milk cannot be manufactured, cannot be synthesized, because that globulins, the albumins which are present in the mother milk is the strongest. So that is how breastfeeding is the best method for keeping the babies in a very, very good health. If they leave the breastfeeding, leads to so many diseases, including polio. That will also be affected. That will also be affected. So nowadays what happens, because of all these things, so the mother is not going for the breastfeeding, where she lives in the middle and where the baby suffer from a lot. So the strength, everything, immunity in your body is mainly depends upon or comes from your mother, not from the father. So this immunologically, if you have the good strength, so the health is very important, the health is wealth. So all keep in things, so where the mother plays a very important role in the society, and she is the one where in the top, because why I am telling this one, because she manages wonderfully. And she manages things. And so if you just give mother 10,000 rupees to her, so what she will do? 5,000 she will keep in the FD. But the same thing, 10,000 give it to the father, another 10,000 he needs. So that is the differences that you can make out between the mother and the father. So mother leads a highest leading in the society. That is how this economic forum is Women's Economics Forum plays a very important role in bringing the nation in an integrated manner, and where she plays a very important role in almost all development activities of the nations. Now these are the techniques, different techniques. I will not take many time, and see, this is the globally how, so the total hectares cultivated and all those things. And now these are the things where different graphically and all those things, production adoption, GM crops globally and locally. This is the ones where I will not take much, because my colleagues are there waiting for me when you will finish the lecture. So the BT cotton also plays a very important role in agriculture, and here is the two scientists are sitting here, where they have done wonderful work in Harvard Agriculture University, where they have produced the BT cotton, and lot of tremendous progress in this one. And you know, this is the performance advance of BT cotton versus conventional cotton, and how it plays a very important role on all those things. So this is the one transient technology with potential benefits. I will stop my lecture here. So because now the food production is very, very important task, because even in India you take nearly about 125 crores. The people where how to supply the food, that plays the problem, and where now the biotechnology plays a very important role in supplement very good and also yield, and also all types of the food to this. And I thank the organizer for giving me this opportunity to say a few words how the biotechnology plays a very important role in the agriculture sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts. Now I would like to invite Dr. Chitri. Please come.
Good evening, everyone. I take this opportunity, first of all, to thank the chairperson of this World Women Economic Forum and also Dr. Rupa Vasudevan, the Vice Chancellor of RTU, and other organizers for inviting me to share some of my views this evening. I welcome all of you to my brief talk, concentrating on the emerging trends in agricultural sciences and the equal opportunities to all in the developing countries. I'm sorry, I have a bad throat. I will be concentrating on education part of it, and part of it is on the research aspect. My previous speaker and my senior, Professor Kaliwal, has already given a brief glimpses of the Indian agriculture. I just would like to highlight that how much India shares in the world agriculture. We have more than 17% of the world's human and 11% of the livestock in India, and 4.2% of the world water we have in our country, and 2.4% of the world area, and 142 million hectares of the cultivable land, of which 60 million hectares is the irrigated land, and the cropping intensity is 138%. This cropping intensity is low in India compared to other countries, and we need to enhance this cropping intensity for boost up the production. And 52% of the population earns livelihood in agriculture. This is more important compared to any other country, especially the developing countries. Most people live on the agriculture in India. More than 50% live on agriculture, and it contributes only 14.7% to GDP. If you look back at the contribution of agriculture to GDP just before or at the time of independence, it was more than 30%. Now it has come down to 14.7%. Dr. Vasmani is an economist here, and probably he will be able to tell more details about the contribution of agriculture to GDP. And we just have only about 10% of the total exports. The distinct transitions in the history of agriculture, I will not take much time in this. What we had, not only in India, it is in most of the developing countries, how we have progressed. You can just see the bottom, y is equal to less than 0.5 tons per hectare. Now y is equal to 4 tons per hectare. You can just see the transition. It has started with less than 0.5 tons per hectare. Now we are at the stage of 4 tons per hectare. And you know that we witnessed the Green Revolution in 1964. That's where our food grain production was less than 52 million tons. Now we have the food grain production of more than 262 million tons, and probably we are expecting 5 to 10 million tons extra food grain production this year, because we suffered in the last 2 years because of the drought in some parts of the country, and the prediction for monsoon for this year is above normal, and we expect the food grain production to cross 265 million tons this year. The emerging challenges which I have listed, the stagnating and declining productivity. If you compare the productivity potential of most of the crops in our country, it is much less compared to world average or the productivity potential in US and other developed countries. This is true not only with India but even with other developing nations. And the depleting quality of the natural resources, biotic and abiotic stresses, inefficient use of agri inputs, regional imbalances in productivity and production, lack of qualified manpower in frontier areas, then high post-harvest losses, biofuels. Strengthen, in order to cap the gaps, what we need to do is to strengthen the research base in interdisciplinary manner to reach yield levels of China and Vietnam as far as rice is concerned. In these countries, the yield levels have gone up to 70 to 80 quintals per hectare, but the yield levels in our country is just between 30 to 40 quintals per hectare. That is 3 to 4 tons per hectare, almost double the yield what we get in India. Planning research programs based on farmers' feedback. We plan the research just for the sake of research. We don't look into the real problems of the farmers. we have to really consider the problems of the farmers, then we plan our research. Encouraging industry-driven farming. We are not really bothered about the industries. When we go conduct any kind of research, we are not really concerned about what is really required by the industry, whether the industry wants nutraceuticals, phytochemicals, or vitamin-rich crops, and all those things. Then focusing on developing organic varieties under resource conservation technologies and organic seed production. Now it is the era of organic farming, and recently probably you are aware that our Honorable Agriculture Minister declared Sikkim as the organic state, and we have also started, ICR has already started an International Organic Research Institute at Sikkim. So that is one initiative by Government of India very recently, and it is yet to start. The institute, it has already been declared. And then we have forgotten, if you look back the agriculture, what our ancestors are following, like my fathers and forefathers, and those days, the agriculture, they never used any chemical fertilizers, they never used any pesticides. Now everyone uses chemical fertilizers and pesticides, and we are going back, and the organically produced foods are fetching more price in the market, especially in the international market, maybe 3 to 4 times higher prices than the foods produced through using chemical fertilizers and the pesticides. Then encourage multidisciplinary programs in a consortium mode to address problems of smallholders and the farmers. If you take the average land holdings in our country, the average land holdings is less than 1 hectare. Maybe it is between 1 to 1.5 acres it comes to. But if you compare the land holdings in other developed nations, like in Canada and US, the land holdings are 2 to 3,000 hectares. And here it is just 1 or 2 hectares, or maybe less than 1 hectare. And that's why we have to concentrate our research, what is really required for the small farmers and the small landholders. Manipulation of phenotypic architecture to suit requirements of system of rice intensification and system of wheat intensification, organic agriculture and conservation agriculture. Because the phenotype of the plant determines the yield levels. That we have forgotten. We have only bothered about the genetic manipulation, but we also have to think of the phenotypic manipulation of the crop architecture. That is very important. Developing varieties and the hybrids with the health protecting minerals, vitamins and phytochemicals. Dr. Kaliwal was mentioning about vitamin A rich foods, vitamin D rich foods, vitamin K rich foods. We have to concentrate on those things to mitigate the malnutrition problems in this country. Then suitable post-harvest technology losses. We are losing approximately about 50,000 to 60,000 crores rupees through post-harvest losses every year. We have to, because there is a saying, a grain produced is a grain saved is a grain produced. We produce, but we are unable to save because we don't have infrastructure for saving the crops or the crop produce which we have been doing. Then improved storage techniques. There are a number of improved storage techniques which needs to be adopted in most of the developing countries. But I will just give an example. I was a visiting scientist at McGill University, Canada. I was taken to a apple cold storage center. At the apple cold storage, because you know whatever the apple which comes to the market in other countries is the apple produced of the last year, not the apple produced this year. They perfectly store for 1 year because they have the buffer of 1 year apple production. That kind of cold storage they have in other countries, but we don't have that kind of a cold storage. And now the government of India has started funding for the cold storage facilities, and probably with the initiation of the government of India, we are going to have less post-harvest losses, which is the need of the hour, because in any case we cannot improve or enhance the cultivable land. The cultivable land is 142 million hectares. Every year the cultivable land is shrinking because of the urbanization, because of increase in the population and so many things. We cannot increase, but only thing is we have to go for the vertical expansion. And in that vertical expansion, it is again, a lot of hurdles are there in the vertical expansion. That's why at least whatever we produce, that needs to be saved, and we have to give a lot of importance for the post-harvest technology losses in all the developing countries. Orienting research programs towards mitigating global climate change, inducing heat, cold and drought tolerance. Because if I remember correctly, about 15 to 20 years back, when I was a professor of physiology, people used to speak of climate change. I said that some people have no business and they bought this climate change terminology and they want to popularize this climate change terminology. But now if you really look into the changes which are occurring around us, like unpredictable monsoon, unpredictable rains, hailstorms and so many things. Climate change is really happening. That I am realizing that whatever they predicted, my predecessors, the seniors predicted is coming true, and we do have the climate change scenario in not only in this country, across the globe we have this climate change, and we have to cope up with the climate change. Because if you see the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, about 25 years back, it was 330 ppm. When we were reading as a students, or even when I was teaching as a professor, I used to teach CO2 concentration is 330 ppm. Now, in the textbooks which are printed of late and the research articles, and if you actually measure in the field, the CO2 concentration is crossed 385 ppm. That means in the last 20 years from 330 to 380, 390, so that's about 60 ppm rise in the carbon dioxide level. There are many adverse effects. One thing is there are both positive effects as well as the negative effects of enhancing the CO2 concentration. From the point of crop productivity, enhancing the carbon dioxide concentration is really required because most of our crops do respond positively to enhance the carbon dioxide concentration. But in terms of rise in the atmospheric temperature, it will have an adverse effect. So that's why we have to look into all those things when we plan for the climate change research. And improving the water use efficiency, which is another very important aspect which we have forgotten, and that's why the biotechnological research is really required in terms of breeding crops for drought and heat tolerance. That is really required in this country, and not only in this country, in all the developing nations. Then platform on genomics and transgenic research needs to be strengthened. Off-season crop production under protected cultivation, which is coming up very well in our country. And then urban and peri-urban horticulture, that is also coming up now. Then employing GIS and remote sensing for detailed soil resource mapping and LUP. These are some of the initiatives which every nation has to take, especially in the developing countries. And India in the world food basket, you can just see we are first in rank in the world, first in the food in pulses production and first in the milk production. The pulse production is only about 17 million tons at present, but we need to enhance to the target of Government of India is to enhance the pulp production from present 17 million tons to at least 22 million tons by 2020 in the next 5 years. The efforts are going on, and this year is the International Year of Pulses. Lot of importance is being given for cultivating pulses across the nation. I will come back to the system. Indian Agriculture Research Institute, where I work, it is the largest national agriculture research education system in the world. So we have 101 research institutes, now at present 643 Krishi Vijnana Kendras, 73 agriculture universities, and we are going to have in the next couple of years, the number of KVKs is going to be 1200. Already our Honorable Agriculture Minister has declared that they are going to enhance the KVKs to 1200. You can just imagine the size of this National Agriculture Research and Education System, and we are one of the biggest in the world. The agriculture universities in the country, if you look at the composite universities, 49% of the composite universities. There was no concept of separate universities like veterinary university, horticulture university, forestry university at all. In the last 10 years, this concept has come in, and there is, again, I don't want to go into the details, there is again advantages and disadvantages of separating these universities from the mainstream of the agriculture. The agricultural education towards a wider reach, I mentioned about the SAUs that deemed to be universities, central universities, and universities with agriculture syllabus. If you look at, because the topic says that the equal opportunity for all, so how we divide the education. So we have 45% of the OBC candidates getting into our agriculture system, and 37% general merit candidates, 11% SC and 7% ST candidates. This is a scenario of the country, the entire country. And we are attracting talented students to agriculture these years, because if you take about 10 to 15 years back, only the students who are not getting admission to medical, dental and engineering they were getting into agriculture. Now, even the students, some students, those who got medical seat, those who got dental seat, engineering seat, they quit and come to agriculture. Because there is a lot of scope for agriculture these days, and I will tell you why there is a lot of scope. I have some couple of slides to show the scope for Indian agriculture or scope for agriculture as a whole in many countries. And if you look at the kind of students we are getting, the students even with more than 90% of marks in 12th grade are being attracted towards the agriculture stream. The category-wise distribution is, no, it is not required. From rural and urban areas, if you look at the education for undergraduate and postgraduate from rural and from 57% of the students come from the villages for undergraduate and 22% from cities and the towns only 21%. For postgraduate education, again, the 53% of the students come from the rural areas and only 25% come from the cities areas. Because we know that agriculture is the main profession and 52% of the people live in the rural areas in our country. Coming to attracting female candidates and the girls towards the agriculture. When I was a student, we never had girls in agriculture. Nobody used to come for agriculture. If we had to see the girls, we had to go to city and see the girls. In our campus, not by mistake, even not a single girl was there in the campus in any of our class. Because that was the scene about 25 years back. Now, if you go to any universities, I had an occasion to visit Assam Agriculture University very recently, about 2 weeks back, when I went to address the students, and I hardly could find the boys. There were only girls. Then I asked the dean what is the percent of girls getting admitted to university. He said that more than 70% of the students admitted are girls in this university. So also in Kerala, in many universities. But we have taken the general statistics from all over the country. You can just see the girls, how there has been increase in the number of girl students getting admitted to agriculture stream and both undergraduate and postgraduate stream. That green bar indicates the girls, and from 32% to 45% now. On an average, 43% of the students admitted to agriculture stream are the female students. So that is what is really happening. Even for postgraduate program, there is not much change from the postgraduate program in the last 5 years. This I mentioned about the scope for agriculture, because when I was a registrar in the university, I used to sit in the admission committee, and the students used to ask while taking admission out of curiosity, "Sir, what is my scope after 4 years? When will I be able to get a job?" I gave confidence to the students that after 4 years, if you don't get a job, you come back to me, I will get you a job, which will pay not less than 25,000 rupees. That is the kind of confidence we have to infuse into the students to get into agriculture stream, and that has come true. And none of the agriculture graduates, at least in Karnataka, I know, but the rest of the country, probably it is true with other parts of the country also. None of the agriculture graduates are unemployed in Karnataka. At least my students, none of my student is unemployed unless he wants to go back to farming or go back and he is lethargic, he is unemployed. Otherwise, not because of the want of job. There are plenty of jobs for the agriculture graduates in the market. And you can see the supply and the demand. There is a wide gap between the supply and demand between all the sectors of agriculture. When I speak of agricultural sciences, it includes horticulture, forestry, veterinary, fisheries, dairy, engineering and agriculture biotechnology, which has started very late, and we have less number of students in agriculture biotechnology. So this is the supply and the demand graph, and there is a wide gap between the supply and demand, and we need to produce more and more agriculture graduates. And we have collected the statistics now. On an average, we can say every year about 25,000 agriculture graduates are being produced, but the requirement is more than 50,000. So that means we are only producing 50% of the requirement of agriculture graduates in our country. There are some initiatives taken by the ICR. I will not go into the details. I think it is irrelevant at this point of time. We have another important thing which I would like to bring it to the notice of the House, is that ICR has initiated this year Student Ready program. Ready means Rural Entrepreneurship Awareness Development Yojana. This is introduced this year. We want to make the students when they get out of the graduation, like when a student is admitted to medical, so he will have 1 year housemanship. Similar to housemanship, we want to introduce in agriculture so that when the students complete their graduation, they should not go in search of jobs. They can go for their own entrepreneurship development. And the efforts are going on. We had a meeting with the commodity boards on an all India basis, and then we have plugged about 15 commodity boards where our students can be trained for nearly 6 months, so that there will not be any problem for these students to find jobs or start their own enterprise. This is not required. We have international linkages with many other countries, and especially India is offering education to Afghan students and African students. So very big program which is going on, and we also send students to other countries under ICR Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose scholarship. Their expenditure is taken by care totally, including the airfare and the living expenses, everything by the ICR. We are investing a lot of money in that. Just we want to have trained manpower to be developed in our country. And there are a number of job opportunities, as I mentioned. Absolutely, there is no doubt of jobs for the agriculture graduates. They can join banks. Very many of the agriculture graduates are in the state service sectors. They are in the central service, and there is absolutely no problem for the agriculture graduates. This is the skill pyramid in agriculture sector. We have recently started diploma courses. So these diploma courses only for 2 years, and now these diploma courses we want to start at the national level. And we want to make 3 years diploma course, because in Gujarat state already they have diploma for 3 years course, and these 3 years students can get a lateral entry into BSc Agriculture. In the Academic Council of Junagadh Agriculture University, we passed a resolution recently that the students can get admission to second year BSc Agriculture after having completed 3 years of diploma, because you would have learned some of the subjects which are being taught in the first year of BSc Agriculture. So these kinds of new thinkings are going on and reforming the education standards in this country. I mentioned about the female students, how there has been a rise in the female students or the girls getting admitted to agriculture. In 1971, it was only 0.8% of the class was the girl students. Now in 2015, it is 42% on all India basis. There has been a gradual rise from 0.8 to 42%. In the last 5 years, there has been a big jump in the number of girls getting admitted to all agriculture courses. The present and the projected outturn required in 2020 in crop sciences, this is made different sciences, crop sciences, physical sciences and all those things. We will not go into the details of those things. The need for agriculture in the mainstream of education, what is really required, and the thinking is going on. And in the CCA note, that is Cabinet Committee Approval Note by the Government of India, which is chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister, in the CCA note it is mentioned, and we have also, Education Division has agreed that we try to introduce agriculture at the school level, and for which syllabus needs to be prepared. And we are in the process of preparing the syllabus, because we know that agriculture is important. We say that 70% of the people live in the rural areas, and then we don't have the introduction of agriculture at the school level. Even Government of Karnataka was thinking some time back, about a decade back, and it fizzled out in between. I do not know what happened. But now Government of India is thinking, already it is approved by the Cabinet, that we have to introduce agriculture at the school level. Efforts are being made to write to UGC chairman. We have already communicated to UGC chairman to see that at school level, at starting with the 8th standard onwards, until PUC, the agriculture is supposed to be introduced as one of the compulsory subjects in this, and the efforts are on in that direction. These are some general things. Again, I would like to mention here that the R&D investment, if you look at why our productivity is less as a whole in India or in developed countries compared to other nations, is US spends about 2.8% of GDP in the R&D investments, while India, it is only 0.8%. But if you see most of the developed countries like UK, Italy, Brazil and Russia, the amount of spending on R&D activities is much higher compared to spending on R&D activities in our country. again, I got some paper cuttings. More women studying medicine, but your doctor is still likely to be a man. You can see the percent of students getting admitted to medical colleges is about 50% now. And there has been a gradual rise from 38.8% in 1991-92 to 50.6 in 2014-15. So similarly, and if you look at the rise in the female students getting admitted to medical, it is much rapid in agriculture compared to medical, because already there is high number of girl students getting admitted to medical education. The scientific output is also much less in India compared to many other countries. If you see the patents, India has in 2013 had only 17 patents, and the maximum patents were from South Korea. A small country, they had about 4,451 patents, and the researchers number is also much less. You can just see the 4 compared to 79 in UK, 79 in UK and US, and you can see the 4 per 10,000 labor force. And the publications, the number of publications also, we almost 10 times lower compared to many of these developed countries. So these are some of the things which we need to address. In the present day context, so these about the developing countries, we have to really consider their economic status, and we have to plan our research, or we have to plan our programs as per the economic status of the individual countries. But this, once again, thank the organizers, especially Dr. Rupa is here, I mentioned her name, and I'm happy to see you, and I thank all of you for giving me an opportunity to share some of my views this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would like to invite S.B. Usmani, sir, please.
Good afternoon to everyone, my senior colleagues, invitees, and the organizers. I thank Sapit Narora for giving me an opportunity to speak a few words about emerging trends and agricultural opportunities to all in the developing countries. Of course, Rupa Vasudevan told me about this topic yesterday night. Sadly, I was unable to prepare the slides. But many of the things have been shared by my seniors. Of course, Dr. Chetty was working for Agriculture University. He was my senior and he was my boss. Of course, senior vice chancellor. So Davangere University is here. He shared many things about biotechnology. So far as the topic is concerned, let me take a developing country as a developing country, that is the agriculture, which become a mainstay for increasing employment and food production. So we can't make a distinction between developed and developing countries, because if we take into consideration the population that a developed and developing country needs to feed, by 2050 it is estimated that the world population will be 8.9 billion. So there is an enormous amount of increase in the population, and that needs to be fed with not only food per month, nutritious food. So there is a lot of responsibility lies both on the developing countries and the developed countries to produce the amount of food which is required for the population. And because of the WTO, very recently, many of the countries have signed in 1995 the WTO agreements, wherein there are several authorities of trade, and we find emerging trends across the countries, including developed countries, and to supply the required food for the world, it is most uncertain. If you look in terms of the resource scarcity, the climate change risks, and higher energy prices, and demand for biofuels, and the amount of technical progress that is taking place throughout the world. So if you classify the potential area which is available for production of agricultural crops, we have potential areas for production and less potential areas for production. The problems of high potential areas of production are different as compared to the low potential areas. In low potential areas, we have the problem of investments. people find it difficult to go for investments in agriculture because the productivity is less. On the other hand, if you think of high potential areas, the productivity enhancement is more. As a result of increase in the supply compared to the demand, there is going to be a fall in the prices. So a decline in the prices coupled with increase in productivity, in turn the total production, the farm incomes are going to be lower. We find on one hand decline in investments in the risk areas of production, and on the other hand enhancement of productivity in terms of increasing the production, but because of supply exceeding the demand, there is going to be a fall in the prices, which in turn affect the incomes of the farmers. So these are the two problems we find, especially in developing countries. Even though we have a increase in production, which is exceeding the population, the overall world production has increased by 2%, the population has increased by 1.6%. We are happy because food production has exceeded the population. But the major contributors of growth in Asia and most of the developed countries, it is rather enhancement in productivity rather than acreage expansion, because we know the geographical area cannot be exceeded. So far as technologies and policies are concerned for agricultural growth, since the Green Revolution of 1960s, we have been increasing use of seeds, fertilizers, plant protection chemicals, irrigation, etc., coupled with high technology. This has led to increase in production. Once upon a time, India, if you take, for example, in the year of independence, 1947, hardly food production of 51 million tons. Now, surpassed our highest production of 263 million tons of production. So, our highest production that we achieved thanks to the scientists in agriculture and the policy makers who supported agriculture in a big way. Then there are good number of opportunities for new agriculture through diversification. Nowadays, farmers are educated by the line departments. They know what to produce, how to produce, how much to produce. They know the market dynamics. So as a result of this, they are going for diversification in production. Not only they are dependent on food, only crops which have the capacity to meet the consumption requirements, they are thinking in terms of the markets, where there is a good market for which crops. So not only they are concentrating on domestic supplies, even the international supplies. And in this context, especially in agriculture, horticulture is playing a dominant role, and it is acting as a driver for agriculture development, especially in developing countries. So most of the area which is being devoted for production of cereals, pulses, etc., being diverted to horticulture production. And horticulture is such a sector which has a lot of potential for growth in agriculture in terms of returns. In some of the studies, it is quoted that there is going to be a tenfold increase in the incomes of the farmers because of the diversification, especially on horticulture sector. Even the livestock and aquaculture are also contributing for the development of agriculture in most of the developing countries, because, you know, these complementary and supplementary enterprises in terms of livestock and aquaculture have the potential to make use of the surplus labor that's available in agriculture and enhance and add to the income of the farming community. In another area is the export market. Now, as I told, you take either India or Karnataka for that matter, you find a good number of crops being exported to a number of countries over the years. If you analyze through the help of Markov chain analysis, you find the trends in exports. And most of the exports are going to the less developed countries as of today. About 30 to 40% of the markets are being considered by India. And hardly 10% and less is going to be to US and UK, which are most stringent in terms of the quarantine requirements. So what I mean to say is India is exporting most of the crops to various countries, but the quantum of exports going to developed countries is less than 10%. It means India needs to concentrate on quality aspects like certification. It may be Europe Lab certification, organic certification, or global lab certification. Through this certification process, we'll be able to capture most of the developed countries, wherein we'll be able to earn more income compared to exporting to some of the underdeveloped countries, mainly the Gulf countries. There are some confronting challenges, uncertainties, but these things will not be converted into opportunities. The main problem is the reduction in the available land for agriculture production, as our seniors have already covered this. Because of urbanization, we find decline in the arable land, which is being diverted to other sectors, and water scarcity because of climate change and decline in the groundwater levels are coming in the way of agriculture production. And there are adverse effects of climate change in over years. It is going to be increase the climate temperature ranging from 2 to 3%, which has in some crops the adverse impacts. Because of heavy temperature, the crops are not going to sustain, and there are chances of failure of crops in terms it will affect the farmer's income. But however, there is going to be increase in the demand for food by the world population, which is going to touch about 8.9 billion by 2050, and there is an enormous responsibility lies both on the developed and developing countries to feed this increased population. There are a good number of opportunities for the developed and developing countries in terms of the areas of retailing and packaging, because most of the people who are very busy nowadays, they want ready-to-eat foods. So there is a lot of potential in terms of retailing and packaging, and there is a lot of potential for the energy opportunities, because many of us, we know that the dependence on oil and natural gas cannot be continued unabatedly. There is a need to think of alternative source of energy in terms of biofuels, feed and grain estimates, liquid fuels, etc. So we are trying to innovate these alternative source of energy, because we can't last long for dependence on these petroleum products or natural gas. And another important thing which is acting as an opportunity is the convenience and health care centers, where you find the rapid changes in the consumer taste and preferences, and the expectations of the people have changed. Because of this change, there is a rapid change in agriculture production, the pattern of foods, etc. And another good opportunity for agriculture sector is a direct relationship between producer and consumer, wherein the consumers are very much interested to know what they are eating. So organic products, the certified products would come in a big way to help the consumers and to satisfy these needs. And another important thing is there is a generational transformation. It means the younger people are entering into agriculture. There are many examples we read in the newspapers, especially in India. People who are into IT sector, now they are moving to agriculture. So new generations are entering agriculture as compared to the people who doesn't find or doesn't fit anywhere who will come to agriculture. Now the trend has totally changed. So innovative thinkers, the highly qualified people are entering into agriculture. So agriculture is a profitable venture, which is proved beyond doubt because of the entrance of such people who left their hands-on jobs and entered into agriculture. The partnerships for success, now we find in agriculture sector because of less investments. Now many corporate companies are entering into agriculture to make investments. We find number of people, number of big players to enter into production activities, advertisement activities, processing, marketing, distribution. So we find the public-private partnerships, including government and private sector, joining hands together to enhance agriculture production productivity and make it available to the people where they are and whatever the commodity they want. So we find a lot of employment opportunities in agriculture production, marketing, exports, processing, distribution, etc. So as a result of this, on one hand we say because of mechanization in agriculture, the technological improvements in agriculture, there is unemployment. But on the other hand, if you think of post-production aspects, there is a lot of opportunity for enhancing the employment opportunities, and many programs of the state and central governments are introduced for increasing the production and productivity in turn, the income levels of farmers. So there are a lot of schemes, including the credit available to the farmers for enhancing production. So in a nutshell, the world food supply requires close monitoring and new investments to speed the productivity growth, make production systems more sustainable, and adapt to climate change. In addition to this, there is a need to diversify the export markets because there is a lot of demand. And India is a country which is endowed with all natural calamities and natural resources. And in spite of calamities, we can make the best production and make it available to many countries in the world throughout the year. So we have enormous responsibility lies both on the developing and developing countries in enhancing food production, making it available to the people, and also enhance the income levels and the standard of living of the farmers and the consumers by offering good quality products. So these are the opportunities available to both developing and developing countries. Because of WTO, there is no discrimination. Every country is treated as same. Thank you very much for patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you all the speakers, and thank you all of you for being part of these sessions and this wonderful event, Women Economic Forum 2016. If anybody having a question regarding these sessions, then they can meet the speakers in the area, coffee area. They will have answer. Because we are running short of time and we have nothing to do.
YSC agriculture is a general course. It encompasses everything. We teach forestry, we teach irrigation, we teach agriculture, we teach animal husbandry, we teach horticulture.
You better speak.
Go ahead. Because he has undergone all kinds of experiences. But they will be learning So they need to have a sophisticated lab. So say for example, fortunately if they are placed in a good lab, they will learn. But now, biotechnology, colleges are offering they don't have really good facilities for training students. That's why biotechnology is and one more thing. All these companies like seed fertilizer, pesticides, they want because we know that these people are
one side, on another side, they suffer from you want to escape this. So if you join, it's a very good plan. You will add
ask their seniors, and they will also see where their seniors are placed, whether they are well placed, in which company they are placed, whether they are well paid or not. Compost that they go by the seniors.
Yes, ultimately being an I don't believe that was
that is, I told you that they are not getting
like in that
required.
I don't think there's any gaps.